Beautiful silver hair, a cat-like gaze, eyes as blue as the clear sky. This character is painfully familiar to our heroine. Some time ago, she became addicted to a novel called The Beloved Saint, in which the main villain was called Liz Agnes. Despite her cold-blooded image, she knew more suffering and despair than anyone else. It turned out that the girl ended up in the body of the sister of her favorite heroine, Rachel Agnes. This means that very soon, she will have the opportunity to see the wonderful Liz with her own eyes. In fact, she is the illegitimate daughter of a duke who spent her entire childhood as a commoner. Rachel, her paternal sister, unexpectedly came into an inheritance and then died. After this, the girl was accepted into a noble family, but everyone who could mocked her. As time went on, Liz's soul gradually became darker and darker, turning the child abandoned in an unknown world into a real monster. Readers will probably wonder why our heroine likes the villain so much more than the main character. The villain of the novel was very beautiful and seductive, but that's not all. She managed to awaken magical powers within herself and then crushed all those who mocked her. As soon as our heroine remembered what kind of ending awaited her, tears involuntarily welled up in her eyes. Liz always wondered whoever called love a beautiful feeling. It's pure desire, a thirst to subjugate someone and have absolute power over them. Over time, she came to this conclusion on her own, even though the girl didn't manage to get her. At least she tried. If Agnes had only known how to love properly, her ending could have been completely different. The villainess didn't choose this life for herself, so at least she will die of her own free will. Although she claimed that she had no regrets, thoughts of a different outcome prove otherwise. It dawned on our heroine that maybe everything would be different if she showed her that everything could change. Rachel's goal in this world is to live with her little sister until she becomes a gray-haired old lady, after which I realized why, in this fantasy, I had only aged myself. Her thoughts were interrupted by a maid who came in and said that she had brought her favorite wine made from Lewis Mountain grapes. Its hue was simply magnificent. Our heroine is lucky that she knows all the characters thanks to memories from a past life. This woman, who kept saying that after one sip, she would immediately feel better and forget about all the hardships of life, is the head maid, Abigail. The lady served in the Agnes family for more than 10 years and gained everyone's trust. It was she who was able to finally reduce Rachel's sum by gradually brainwashing her. And then, taking advantage of the Duchess's clouded mind, she obtained power of attorney and ruled the territory as she saw fit. Rachel, who lost her parents in an accident, was immediately given the title of Duchess without even leaving time to recover from the shock. Not surprisingly, the head maid, who was constantly next to her, took advantage of this. Unfortunately, Abigail's plan was successful. Our heroine replied that she had a headache, and alcohol would only make it worse, so she should take it back. The woman was surprised, but replied that there was simply no better cure for a headache than sleep. She would return after the girl had rested. Rachel noted to herself that it was clear without any evidence what she was trying to achieve to kill her, and imagined herself as the mistress of the duchy. So she replied that there was no need to be so intrusive. The head maid muttered that it was her fault, in which case she would prepare a bath for her. Agnes is currently 20 years old and has been drinking heavily for 6 months now, neglecting her duties. The girl has a lot of work to do before inviting Liz to live with her. First of all, it is necessary to get rid of Abigail, who in the plot of the novella offended her little sister and generally manipulates Rachel. Then the thought flashed through her mind that this was all somehow ridiculous. She was taking a luxurious bath in a duchy that was rolling into the abyss. Suddenly, another maid appeared, holding a bottle of wine, and said she thought it would make the moment even better. Our heroine immediately realized that this was the very wine that the head maid had so persistently tried to foist on her. While the girl was lamenting that if she needed anything, she should just call her our heroine hist, who ordered it to be brought here, she immediately fell to her knees and began to ask for forgiveness, because she had made a terrible mistake, only because she had only recently arrived here. Rachel decided to start small and show that she had changed, so she told her not to worry and asked her name. When the assistant answered that it was Anne, the Duchess said that she had not yet settled in and would not have been able to think of bringing this wine on her own, so she should just say who sent her. The maid replied that it was the head maid's order. She said that the mistress would definitely want a drink. Our heroine asked to give her the bottle and tell that woman that she liked everything. Alcohol is alcohol, but it was interesting why she was constantly trying to get her to drink this particular wine. After examining the vessel, something dawned on her. After some time, Rachel specifically said out loud that she felt quite okay, her thoughts slightly clouded by a hangover, but otherwise everything was pretty good. She thought to herself that she was sure that things would have been much worse if she had drunk the wine with the powder added to it. Then she heard some noise in the corridor and a man's voice, after which she said that the morning had just begun, and there was already some kind of commotion let him in. A man appeared in the room and declared that today she would simply have to listen to him. When the girl asked if his name was Marcus, the guy replied that he was amazed that she still remembered his name. What an honor! The girl thought to herself that she was incredibly lucky, because she was just about to look for him and he came on his own. This man was the assistant of the late Duke Agnes, and later became Liz's right hand. He is also the only one who knows where the baby is. Now he was the one who brought her to the estate when Rachel died to make the girl a duchess. Suddenly, the man stated that 6 months had passed since he last saw her sober. It was hard to argue with this, since recently the girl had been drowning her sorrows in wine every day. She drank even more often than she ate. In theory, she should be ashamed, but she did not feel any negative consequences of her lifestyle. Perhaps she is some kind of magician. But then the real Duchess would not have died so early, after which she asked what he wanted to talk to her about. The man handed her the papers and said that this was a summary of the duchy's affairs over the past 6 months, and that she should look at them. Our heroine was surprised that he had really carried out such a large-scale work alone, but she thought to herself that when she read the novella, she immediately noted his talent. It was not for nothing that he became the assistant of the main villain. Then she added that she would study these documents a little later, but for now she would like to hear a short report. Marcus reported that farmers were left without a harvest. Soldiers and knights had not been paid for months, and constantly increasing taxes were forcing residents to leave the duchy. In addition, the number of victims of wild animals near the borders is increasing. Many have been sharpening their blades for a long time, waiting for the right moment to organize an uprising. Rachel, of course, suspected that things were not going well for them, but this was too much, so she asked how they had gotten to this point. The man asked if she had forgotten that she had delegated her authority to the head maid. She reviews all the papers. In fact, the duchy is not run by her grace, but by some servant. Our heroine said that then she needs to get rid of her minions first, and added that she already has a request that concerns Abigail. Noticing the expression on her interlocutor's face, the girl said that there was no need to worry. She had not taken out the bottle to drink. The head maid gave her this bottle. She wants him to find out what it consists of. Rachel can't say for sure, but the drink was definitely spiked. The man was furious. What kind of person would you have to be to commit such a mean act? The girl thought that she could not believe that she was hearing this from a man who in the near future could become a heartless intriguer. Although if he hadn't changed so drastically, he wouldn't have been able to protect little Duchess Liz. The man bowed and said that everything would be done. He would return as soon as he found out the details. Marcus is not faithful to her. He is only loyal to his homeland and the deceased duke. But one day he will start helping the main villain, which is why Rachel counts on him, because she knows that he will not let her down. She needs to do everything to ensure a happy future for her beloved little sister to start with. Make a list of rats that need to be poisoned. This cannot be delayed. Meanwhile, the second-in-command, Rupert Archer, said that it was simply unbearable that the captain would already pay the wages of those who still had not received them. Pouring wine, the commander of the nightly detachment, Dale Verver, exclaimed that he was at it again. Let him tell them to wait a little longer. The young man was indignant. How much longer can they tolerate this? Does he really want to say that they should just tighten their belts and continue to work for free? Dale hissed. How dare he talk to him like that? The guy thought to himself that his brain was already completely drunk. He didn't even understand what he was saying. How Agnes had gotten to this state. The commander began to call him an arrogant scarecrow and say that he would show him how to be insolent to his superiors, after which he hit him on the cheek. The young man thought to himself that he could not go on like this any longer. Knighthood was doomed, but he had to endure, because if he did something stupid, it would fall to his people. The knights exclaimed that they could not eat when such things were happening around them, that everything should be done in moderation, that they had had enough of this circus. The man was indignant. Where were they all going? How dare they behave like this? Now he will show them. Suddenly, our heroine appeared and asked what he could do with them. If he didn't know, then he could be heard perfectly well from outside. So let him answer the question. The headmaid's cousin is a typical representative of people who get everything thanks to connections. His interlocutor is a powerful knight who protected the main character in the most dangerous moments. Judging by the surrounding environment today is the day when the young man is going to leave this estate. He should not be missed under any circumstances, as he is an outstanding personality who will achieve the rank of master in the future. If she didn't keep him by her side, he would become a nuisance to Liz in the future, after which she asked if Dale wanted to pounce on him. Then she sat down on a chair and told them to start fighting, no matter what the outcome. It will not have a negative impact on them. She promises them this. The commander did not understand what was happening to her because the nurse said that she was stuffing her with medicine. The knight said that he did not want to stain his sword by fighting with him, so he would use a wooden one. The man shouted that he was an arrogant, impudent person and would make him regret everything. But the young man easily dodged his attack and knocked the weapon out of his hands. He thought to himself that he had made his move, and he would not be at all surprised if she retracted her words, considering the kind of person who now occupied the Duchess's place. But to his great surprise, the girl declared that from now on, he would be the commander of the knightly detachment. Therefore, our heroine will give him the first order. Let him send these parasites behind bars immediately. The boy thought to himself that the Duchess had finally changed. He didn't know what had happened, but it meant that the time they had all been waiting for had come, and then he replied that the order would be carried out. Meanwhile, the head maid was thinking that heaven was helping her. No one suspects that the current Duchess is under the influence of a special substance. Everyone thinks that she is mired in sadness and emptiness after the loss of her parents, but in reality, it is all thanks to the medicine she uses. But she didn't like what happened in the morning. Usually, right after waking up, Rachel started looking for alcohol. For the first time in 6 months, she moved away from the pattern. Addiction is a disease. It is not something that can be gotten rid of by will and desire alone. Perhaps it was just a coincidence, after which she asked Anne if the Duchess had said anything. The girl replied that, no, she just asked me to tell you that she liked everything. The woman noted that naturally, Agnes will not go anywhere while the drug is active, after which she said that if she does everything that Abigail asks, her life will become much easier. Let her remember this. When the maid answered that fine, the woman was indignant to herself. What kind of dissatisfied answer was this? Apparently, she still does not understand how things are in the estate. But it's okay, it will soon dawn on her. Another maid ran into the office and reported that the Duchess had met with Baron Renton. The woman noted to herself that this was the same person who constantly put spokes in her wheels. If she had drunk that wine, she definitely would not have agreed to meet him. After which she shouted that Anne had said that she had given the wine to Rachel. The girl replied that yes, as soon as she had given her the drink, she had told her to get out. Abigail screamed that she had asked her to make sure she drank it, then threw a plate at her head and added that she should pack her things and get out of this house. She thought to herself that she should have gotten rid of this man even earlier, after all he managed to meet her. Our heroine told the knight that no one should escape from the estate. The guy replied that he would do everything, no matter what it took. Let him not worry, his name and honor are at stake. He will definitely complete the work assigned to him. The girl thought to herself that he was overdoing it, but it didn't even bother her. Before the move, she was a person who was burdened by excessive loyalty. At that time, the duchy was in a terrible state. Even the inner detachment of knights experienced it, and the rest is not even worth mentioning. Many of those who occupied important positions were demoted, and others left the estate of their own free will. Then all the empty places were taken by the henchmen of the chief servant. They need to be caught and prevented from escaping. She remembers how hard it was for Liz because of this woman. She will appear in the duchy exactly 1 year later, and due to all the suffering she will have to endure after coming, she will become an excellent villain. But as long as our heroine is alive, she will never allow something like this to happen. After all, it was only thanks to her that the girl managed to survive the difficult times in her past life. So it's time to start catching these nasty insects, and the main culprit, Abigail. After some time, her ladyship came into her office and asked the head maid what she was doing there in her absence. The woman replied that she was cleaning and heard something happen outside, so she just wanted to go to her. Our heroine interrupted her and told the sobbing Anne to come closer to her, after which she began to say that the position of the senior servant is wonderful, isn't it? She has power and jewels, whatever you like. Abigail replied that she did not understand what she was talking about. The woman chose those that would suit her. None of this belonged to the maid. Our heroine smiled sweetly and said that it meant it all belonged to her. How wonderful! At the same moment, a knight materialized behind the woman and put his hand on her shoulder. When she was captured, the woman screamed, "What happened? Why is she doing this to her all this time?" Abigail was devoted to her, and now they made a sinner out of her. The Duchess then turned to Anne and said that she would soon need her help. After Abigail's arrest, the question of returning the employees who had been demoted arose. The first to arrive back were the butler and the former maid. Rachel promoted her to senior maid and gave her a list of tasks: hiring staff, maintaining the estate, checking inventory, and food supplies. As a result, all the economic affairs of the estate were entrusted to the two of them. In 6 months, taxes doubled, prices skyrocketed, and many merchants closed their shops and left the duchy out of fear of taxes. The streets were teeming with unemployed and homeless people, and crime had increased several times. So Rachel wanted Marcus to come back as soon as possible because it was so hard to work alone. But she had no choice but to send him to find out what was in that bottle. If you think about it a lot, doesn't add up. According to the plot, Rachel should have died, but she moved into her body. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the maid, who reported that the commander of the knights had returned. When the girl saw the carriage with a large number of chests, she was surprised that in 6 months she had managed to appropriate so much for herself. But the guy objected that this was only a part he simply brought, only what was lying in a visible place. The girl replied that in principle, if the savings did not exist, it would be much stranger. This search would definitely benefit their financial situation. The Waver estate land could only be obtained after a guilty verdict from the court, so now was not the time. When our heroine asked if Abigail was still silent, the knight replied that yes, she was now being tortured with interrogations, but she was not saying a word. The Duchess noted that the woman was holding on with all her might, because one wrong move could destroy her entire family. The young man hissed that taking someone else's food was already a serious crime, and she even dared to slip something into her drink, and this could not be left unpunished. After which he handed her the documents and said that they had also managed to buy a house in the capital. The owner was listed as Dale Verver. Rachel muttered that she needed to check what his salary was. She thought to herself that the strong knight Rupert was quiet and calm like a bear, but she saw that he had also suffered a lot. Therefore, she said that because of her, they all had a hard time, but the young man immediately objected that this was not so. But Rachel knew that not only the people in the estate, but all the inhabitants of the duchy suffered because their mistress had shifted all responsibility onto such a treacherous man. The knight added that even if there were such moments, he was sure that they would not happen again. Our heroine replied that of course she thought to herself that she would give % for the sake of her favorite character. Suddenly, Marcus appeared. Her ladyship noted that he even looked a little older. The man immediately shouted that she urgently needed to undergo a medical examination. Meanwhile, Dante Gerald, assistant of the Lexville family, stated that that was all, the rest should be left to the Margrave, and they could return. Among the barbarian tribes living on the border, there appeared those whom even the Margrave could not cope with. Their leader is Texa. He went against tyranny together with his fellow tribesmen and fought to the end. But before the Archduke Lexville, he was like a moth. As long as he was in charge of the defense, no one could invade the Castor Empire. Dante reported that news had come from the Duchy of Agnes 6 months ago. The Duke and Duchess had tragically died, and then problems had begun in the estate. The young man replied that it seemed that the mistress of the family had abandoned all her affairs and had started drinking every day. He heard that several hyenas had set their sights on the duchy, and had they already devoured the whole place? The assistant replied that no. They said that Rachel had come to her senses and was now sorting things out, so he thought he should know about it. Lexville thought to herself that every time they met, she hid behind her parents' backs. The young man, of course, knows what rumors are going around about him. But will she be able to rule the duchy with such a timid soul? If a weak man becomes the head of a family, that ship is destined to sink in deep waters, fate is predetermined. Then the young man said that they were returning to the capital. Gerald was surprised that he did not want to meet with the Margrave. I thought to myself that Teo was a man who destroyed the enemy in just 1 week, while others fought for more than a year. Although he resolves these kinds of problems very quickly, being around him is terribly uncomfortable and very creepy, right down to the point of goosebumps. As if he doesn't care about other people's fate, and it doesn't affect him in any way. The guy has always been like this, a predator who only cares about his prey. After some time after examining her, the doctor said that everything was fine with her, but the girl asked what was in that bottle. The former physician of the Agnes family, Rumon Tudos, thoughtfully asked if her grace knew anything about the herb Purot. When our heroine answered no, the man began to explain that it was a fairly well-known poison. In simple words, he kills the soul, bringing it to such a state that it will not be reborn again. She took it for 6 months, but even experienced doctors and priests could not detect the symptoms of poisoning. Since the manifestation of its action was very similar to alcohol addiction, there is only one difference. If you use it for a long time, a person will not be able to connect words into complete sentences. If the doctor had not encountered similar cases before, he would not have understood anything either, since this poison was banned by the imperial family. Our heroine thought to herself that if the ban came from His Highness, then this herb cannot be bought anywhere. It is necessary to find out how she was able to get it. But first, I decided to ask how it happened that I am healthy, despite the fact that I took it for more than 6 months. Ruman replied that as far as he knew, a person could remain sane after consuming this poison only under 2 conditions. He must either be a saint who has received the blessing of God, or a magician with exceptional powers. Rachel was very surprised, because in all of history, only one person managed to discover this gift in himself. Magic cannot be awakened by simple training. It manifests itself only in the chosen ones. A person with special abilities is born 1 in a million. The girl thought that Liz's element was water. But where could such forces come from in her? She didn't feel anything at all. The man thought to himself that the Duchess was behaving completely differently. Perhaps this soul-killing poison had somehow managed to influence her character. Then he added that little is known about this herb, and it is necessary to monitor its condition. Our heroine replied that she was fine, and thanked him for returning. The doctor asked for forgiveness for not having fulfilled his duties to the end. Despite the fact that he devoted more than half of his life to the Agnes family, he was thrown out of the estate without any explanation. This place was a second home for him. I wonder how much he hated the duchy and missed it at the same time. After which, Rachel said that he was probably tired from the journey, so he could go and rest, and if he needed anything, she would call him. The man bowed and replied that it was good that if she felt something was wrong, she should immediately contact him. A maid came after him and said that she had received letters and had selected the most important ones. The girl immediately noticed the red envelope that came from the imperial family. Meanwhile, in the dungeon, Dale blamed the headmaid for everything and said that if she had not overdone it, everything would have been fine. The woman objected that he came himself and agreed to all the conditions. I thought to myself that it was unlikely that the Duchess would execute them since Abigail was from a noble family. When the trial begins, they will need to present concrete evidence, but almost no one knows about the medicine. It will be necessary to simply insist that she had nothing to do with anything. It is not at all clear why the girl is okay, because she was adding this poison for more than 6 months. Suddenly, a knight appeared, who told her to go out as it was her ladyship's command. The headmaid was immediately glad that she knew it. She truly believed in her loyalty. The young man thought to himself that this was just ridiculous. She would not see the light of day for a long time. After all, the Duchess gave orders to solve the problem in a place where even a rat could not penetrate, so he said that she was going to another place. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking that Theo von Lexville, to put it bluntly, was a completely crazy person. His family had been fire mages for many generations. Although magical abilities are not passed on by inheritance, their entire dynasty magically awakened everything without the power of fire. But in return, they had to turn into hunters, spending their lives in fierce battles, so that some called it a blood curse. The reason she remembered all this is because the imperial family is holding a banquet in honor of Lexville's victory in the war. After the main male character became emperor, The current Archduke was soon buried, and from that moment on, he was never shown in the novel. Is it possible for her not to take part in this? Marcus exclaimed that she herself knew that she would have no other opportunity to inform everyone about the revival of the Agnes family. If she has any doubts about the Archduke, then let her just not go near him, that's all. Rachel thought to herself that because she knew what kind of end awaited him, she would feel uneasy about this meeting. The current emperor, Giorgio von Castor, is the protagonist's uncle, who will punish him in the future. Then she asked the assistant if he had anything to say about that girl, Liz Agnes. The man replied that out of respect for the previous duke, she could not make him one promise. Now the situation in the domain leaves much to be desired. He thinks that he should wait until everything gets better and then be sure to find her. I thought to myself, what did the Duchess even think about? Was she asking this out of good intentions? Ordinary aristocrats leave an illegitimate child to rot in the street and sometimes even kill them. Rachel asked what was going on with the official announcement. Over the last 6 months, taxes have doubled. Because of this, people's peaceful life ended. Then it was announced that everyone would be exempt from them for the next quarter. The assistant replied that most of the inhabitants did not have the ability to read, so he hired several people to spread the news, and soon everyone would know. The girl thought that only people from the upper classes can read. All those whose social status is below average, due to lack of time and money, did not receive an education. Then it is absolutely necessary to think about creating an academy. The land on which Liz will live must be absolutely comfortable and developed. She cannot allow anyone to hurt her, either physically or spiritually. For everything to work out, she, the head of the Agnes family, must become stronger. Then no one will dare to look down on her in this life. She will do everything so that the girl finds happiness. In order to begin implementing your plan, you need a large amount of money. The things that once belonged to the senior maid were sold due to which they were able to get half of the due amount. However, this helped to increase the duchy's budget a little, after which she said that it was time to finish her business. For today, she wanted to go for a walk and personally check the condition of her property. The assistant tried to object, that it was still too early to go and inspect the territories. But he couldn't resist her puppy eyes and said that in any case, it would be her experience. After a short period of time, our heroine was already being thrown from side to side in the carriage. The maid was delighted that this was the first time she was riding in such a comfortable car. Compared to the usual one, everything in it was at the highest level. Rachel thought to herself how convenient she could be. As soon as she saved up a large sum, she would immediately deal with the problems of the local roads. When the knight announced that they had already arrived, the girl decided that she would pretend to be a middle-class aristocrat. The market in the duchy's territory was a great place to learn about the economic situation, but she got sick in the carriage. A sour smell immediately reached her. There were unsightly products all around. All the goods were of low-quality supplies, were difficult because many merchants left the duchy due to the increase in taxes. Things were much worse than she thought. How many problems she still had to solve. Suddenly, a woman's and a child's voice were heard offering people to buy flowers from them. The boy said with tears in his eyes that they were not noticed that they had not bought a single flower, but his sister tried to calm him down and said that everything was fine, that it happens. Our heroine immediately approached them and said that she wanted to buy absolutely everything, how much they cost. The girl stuttered and replied that she would give it to him for 3 silver coins, which would have cost him 5. But since she was taking everything, she would give him a discount. When they were given a whole bag of coins, the boys muttered in shock that there were too many in there. The Duchess smiled sweetly and replied that the flowers were simply wonderful, so she did not regret the money. In truth, Rahel paid attention to them because their relationship seemed warm to her, and she wants to live with Liz in the same harmony. Then she handed a bouquet to the knight and her maid. The guy muttered that it was the first time he received flowers. When our heroine asked if he had a girlfriend, the young man replied that he didn't even have time for training. The Duchess replied that she didn't need anyone either, as she was constantly busy with her work. She thought to herself that as soon as the situation improves, she will definitely give them a good rest. Suddenly, they heard an irritated male voice exclaiming what this Duchess was doing. This had never happened under the previous management. As soon as he remembers about taxes for this quarter, he immediately wants to drop everything and leave this place. Anne stopped them and asked if her ladyship hadn't issued a decree. exempting everyone from paying the tax. The worker didn't understand what she was even talking about. When he explained that the newly elected tax collectors were going from house to house, taking away their last possessions, our heroine was shocked. Then they heard three men shouting at the woman from whom they had bought flowers, saying that if she had earned it, then she should pay for it, and she begged them to stop. The girl said that she hadn't chosen anyone for this position yet, so what's going on here? When she approached them and told them to stop, the young man replied that apparently she was from a wealthy family. There was no need to get underfoot when others were working, so let her get out of there in a good way. Rachel noted to herself that these were typical villains. That's why they said that the social order was unstable. She couldn't even think of such a thing. It was entirely her fault. The saleswoman realized that the situation was getting tense, but she couldn't let other people get hurt because of it, so she told her brother to run. After which, she bit the young man's shoulder with all her might. Then she shouted to our heroine that these people were very dangerous and that she should quickly flee. Rachel thought to herself that in such dangerous situations, a person's true nature comes out. Therefore, she told Rupert to deal with them, but not to kill them, since she did not want to see such a terrible sight. The young man immediately began to carry out the order and instantly knocked the weapon out of the attacker's hands. When the criminal was grabbed by the scruff of the neck, he did not understand at all what was happening, after which he shouted that he was not afraid of the Duchess. How dared he touch him, a tax collector? She would not leave it like that. Let him immediately kneel before them and beg for mercy. Our heroine looked at this impudent fellow and replied that there was no need to make her laugh with such words. The maid immediately told him to stop immediately and to pay his respects to Duchess Agnes. Rachel noted to herself that Anne, despite her age, copes with her role perfectly. The young men were stunned that her ladyship was standing before them. The girl turned to the knight and said that some worthless people were using her name and doing evil, so what punishment could be applied? Without thinking twice, the young man replied that he wanted immediate death penalty, and the boys immediately began to beg for mercy. The Duchess ignored this and began to loudly announce that she was exempting everyone from paying the tax the decree had been issued. If anyone had the courage to do this again, let them report it to her. Then she turned to the flower seller and asked what her name was. The girl replied that it was Bella, after which she began to thank her for her help. She didn't know how to repay her for it. Our heroine replied that she must go with her because she had decided that Bella would become her servant. The next day, she told her assistant that not all people had been informed and that the extortionists were still active. The world outside is so dangerous, and he still doesn't want to tell her where her little sister is. After which, she said that she had finished with all the affairs. This was enough for the problems in the duchy to be resolved, so Marcus needed to keep his promise. On the way in the carriage, the man thought it would take her a month to review all the papers. Moreover, each document was carefully studied by her. This commands respect, undoubtedly. She is the person to whom he will be devoted from now on. The Duchess was eager to meet her sister and worked hard, sacrificing her sleep. The maid asked our heroine that she was probably very worried. The girl replied that of course, because very soon she would have a family. Anne thought to herself that after the Duchess's parents died, she was completely alone. Apparently, she was very lonely. When they arrived at the place, Rachel began to worry about how to introduce herself, because the first impression is very important, and the man was asked if maybe he should go in first. While the girl was indignantly answering that she had to do it herself, a little girl crashed into her. They shouted after her that this little brat was incredibly annoying, and that she should get out of here. In this little girl, who was choking with tears, our heroine immediately recognized Liz. The baby believed that man is a very fragile creature. He tries to survive in various ways in order to satisfy his desires. Because of this, in her eyes, his life seems tiny. Why does everything come so easily to a saint? She doesn't have to get her hands dirty to get everything she wants. She has never received the warmth that others so freely give her, and she has never known what peace is. When the little girl calmed down a little, she noticed that the girl's hair was the same color as hers. Our heroine replied that yes, she can touch them if she wants. They are the same silver shade. Then I noticed that the girl was very sad, poorly dressed, and dirty. Then a woman appeared and screamed that she should just try to come here one more time, after which she turned her attention to the Duchess and asked who she was and what she was doing here. Our heroine hissed that she was the sister of this little girl. 8 years ago, when all the flowers in the garden were in bloom, a child was left near the gate. The note said that they would send money every month to take care of her and raise her healthy. Her name was Liz. The woman, of course, suspected that she was the illegitimate child of some titled family, but this was the daughter of unusual rich people. If you try hard enough, you can shake a considerable sum out of her. Although she is not very bright, but I am sure that this is an indecently rich family. This is obvious because she is able to hire knights for herself. Our heroine muttered that she wanted to thank him for looking after her sister all this time, but she wouldn't do it. The woman said that the baby was just being capricious, so she decided to scold her for it. Rachel went completely berserk and hissed at her to shut her filthy mouth, after which she asked whether they hadn't sent her money every month for maintenance. The man replied that yes, after the death of the previous owner, he had sent funds from his own pocket. But the last couple of months have been very busy, so it didn't work out. The Duchess thought to herself that it was immediately obvious that the girl had been hurt much earlier. One look was enough to understand it. Then she turned to the girl and asked if she wanted to go with her. Rachel is really her sister, because they are very similar, especially their hair and eyes. She thought to herself that she would give her the warmth that she had dreamed of so much, as well as the peace that she had never felt before Liz would feel all this next to her. The little girl clarified that even if she had some oddities, they would still take her away. The girl replied that it didn't matter to her if she wanted to stay with her, she would put up with anything, after which she added that now they can go home. Everything will be fine. Finally, Rachel ordered the young man to deal with this woman. On the way, our heroine examined the baby and thought that she was so exhausted and thin. In the novel, it was written that Liz had an ordinary life as a commoner, but after what she saw, she won't let anyone talk like that anymore. In her past life, when the girl wanted to give up, only the villainess inspired her. Her very existence is a miracle. She wonders what kind of life she lived in a world unknown and alien to Rachel, what she had to endure. After which she smiled and said that everything was fine, and that now everything would be completely fine with her. An aristocrat always has several types of dishes on his table, depending on what kind of food it is. It is served in special dishes, and they are all eaten differently. It's unlikely that Liz knows about this. It's good that our heroine asked to prepare something simple in advance. Rachel felt full for the first time, just by watching someone else eat. Aristocrats are used to keeping things that they value, for example, fountain pens, clothes, toys from childhood. Our heroine was one of them, so her old clothes fit her sister perfectly, but soon she would buy her everything the little one wanted. After which she informed Bella that this girl would be the one she would serve. The girl immediately bowed to the little girl, said that she was glad to meet the miss, and introduced herself. The little girl felt extremely awkward, so she just muttered that she was not a miss. Our heroine was touched, that she probably just wasn't used to it yet, but everything would be fine. After which she suggested going somewhere together, because she had a gift for her in honor of her arrival. In the next room, a pile of gifts and a large strawberry cake were waiting for her. The little girl couldn't control her emotions and burst into tears asking why she came for her so late. Rachel didn't want to justify herself with the senior maid's atrocities, so she replied that she was simply very ill. Then she hugged her and added that it was precisely because of this that she could not come to her aid. To myself, I thought that the real owner of this body had died without ever knowing about its existence. According to the plot, this is what happened, but now she decided to lie and say that she was sick. After some time, the girl brought the baby into the room and said that now it belonged to her. Did she like this bedroom? The baby answered that she did. Our heroine said that she was very glad that she liked it. As soon as she needed something, she should just talk about it. Liz replied that she found out what a cake is. It turns out it's very tasty. She has enough of everything now, so she's happy. Then the girl asked why Rachel was so kind to her, since she had absolutely no idea what kind of child she was. The girl thought to herself that her real name was Pak E-an. She was born in the Saint Century in South Korea. Our heroine was a promising actress, but no matter how brightly a star shines, there comes a time when it fades, but her star faded faster than others. She debuted at an early age, and everyone showered her with love. But because of her constant project failures, people began to laugh at her. After losing all the love the public showered on, her Pak fell into deep despair and became mired in it, so she soon began to avoid reality. There she met her, The girl said that only those who are not so eager to achieve what they want can pretend to be a polite person trying to save face. And she doesn't care when it comes to what she needs, and she doesn't disdain anything, so His Majesty shouldn't see even a shadow if the girls don't want to be collected piece by piece. Therefore, she answered the little girl that she probably wouldn't understand her now, but the little one was her star. She added to herself that she was a star, who unlike her was strong, who didn't care about other people's opinions. Life only gains real value when you begin to love knowing that all efforts were in vain, that you are approaching the edge of the abyss, you stay close in support. All this long time spent alone, only Liz saved her. She became the meaning of Rachel's life, a child who shines brighter than anyone else. No matter what trials come her way, her sister will be by her side. A week had passed since the baby had arrived, and although it seemed that she was still not used to it, she had at least begun to smile and shine more brightly than when they first met. I would like to always be near her, but she needs to show high society that Rachel Agnes is alive and well, and for this she needs to go to the banquet in honor of Lexville's victory. But she had just met her little sister. It was so hard to leave her alone for a long time, so she would just show up there and immediately return back. Suddenly, she heard the cry of a little girl who was running after the carriage, but stumbled and fell to the ground. It turned out that the little one just wanted to tell her older sister that she would see her soon, and meanwhile, at the ball, they had already begun to discuss that Duchess Agnes had arrived in the capital, the very one who had fallen into the arms of wine 6 months ago. I wonder what she looks like now. When it was announced that our heroine would now enter, a heavy silence fell over the hall. The girl noted to herself that everyone had such faces, as if they expected to see a beggar woman in front of them. Knowing this in advance, she had to go through all the circles of hell while getting herself in order. Suddenly, some aristocrat approached her and said that they had not seen each other for a long time, and apparently now she should address her as Your Highness. Rachel thought to herself that she was beautiful. It must be Carolyn Harrisman. Her family helped promote the current emperor when he was crown prince, and due to these merits, titled Marquise, became dukes. Once the original plot of the novel begins to come true, they, along with the emperor, will be lost in the depths of history. There is no need to get close to them, but Harrisman will be in power for another 10 years, so it is necessary to maintain contact for now. So she asked as she wished. The girl burst into tears and replied that everything was as usual. Her father still tells her to stop being in the clouds and dreaming about him. The girls around exclaimed that perhaps she was not having it as easy as everyone thought. What a poor thing she was. Our heroine thought to herself that the story of the unrequited love of the socialite Carolyn was quite well known in high society, and it remained in the memory of Rachel, who almost never attends aristocratic events. One of the guests continued to calm her down and say that she hoped it didn't sound rude, but they thought that such a man was not suitable for such a gentle person, as she was most likely her father thought so too. The object of the unrequited love of this girl, who considers herself the main character of some melodrama, is the one who is the center of all attention at this banquet, Archduke Lexville. Harrisman continued to sob and say that she knew her father was saying this out of concern, but she could not so easily deny her feelings for him. This aristocrat almost always tried to attract everyone's attention with her sadness. Surprisingly, it worked. The men wanted to somehow console her, and the women felt sorry for her and tried to understand her situation. But nevertheless, she avoided other people's judgments and tried to play on two fronts. Our heroine worked in the media industry and saw people like her almost every day. Suddenly, it was announced that the son of the empire had arrived, His Majesty the Emperor, Giorgio von Castor, and the Archduke of Lexville. From Rachel's vague memories, our heroine understood that he was handsome. But I didn't think it would be that much, so that girl's unrequited love is completely justified. Is this really the person? How can he be involved in what is said about him? Then she realized that she should appear before the emperor and not look at his handsome face. Harrisman goes to the audience first. Rachel will be next in line. Suddenly, a man noticed our heroine and exclaimed that this was Duchess Agnes. How is she doing? This was a representative of the Market Cavendish family. This family tried to conflict with the previous Duke Agnes at any opportunity, so you shouldn't mess with them and get into trouble. The young man still did not calm down and said that she had not had a single official reception with the emperor. What if she made a mistake in front of His Majesty? First, it would be better if they went and introduced themselves, and she would watch and learn how to do it. Rachel responded that she doesn't think she should follow the example of people who don't know what hierarchy is. She thought to herself that they were worthless and apparently just wanted to hurt her. After which, she turned to the son of the great empire, and worthy of the praise of all the people, His Majesty she, Duchess Agnes, wants to introduce herself to him. Then she added that she was glad to meet him, and also congratulated the Archduke on his victory. She thought to herself that he looked pretty dangerous, so it was enough that she simply said hello to him. But the young man asked how she was feeling, because he had heard that she had had a hard time dealing with the loss of her parents. The girl asked for forgiveness for making them worry. From now on, she takes responsibility for her affairs and promises to do her duty. They cannot worry. The emperor replied that since she said so, they really did not need to worry. Rachel felt extremely uncomfortable as he looked her up and down. This man imprisoned his little nephew and took the throne. Next to him is the Archduke, who is going crazy from the smell of blood. She does not want to get involved with them, so she would like to leave this place as soon as possible. Suddenly, someone came up to our heroine from behind and deliberately pushed her. As she fell forward, she immediately began to remember the words of her assistant. The man warned that under no circumstances should she touch the Archduke, because if something went wrong, she could end up either without an arm or without a head. But in the end, due to some treachery, she found herself in the arms of a young man. When the Duchess asked for forgiveness, the young man simply walked past her, and she thought that apparently the guy does not kill everyone, left and right. But the Archduke approached Cavendish and hissed, "How dare he use him for his dirty deeds?" Literally, a moment later, fire burst into flames on the man's hand. Our heroine was taken aback by this picture and thought that it seemed like the rumors weren't lying after all. The Archduke turned to his assistant Arthur and said that it was time for them to return. At the end, the young man for some reason glanced at our heroine, and she did not understand why he looked at her like that. Meanwhile, Liz woke up and thought that every time she became afraid, that her past reality would become like this again, and the current one would turn out to be a dream. But still a warm, cozy room, which is warmed in the morning by the sun's rays, a soft blanket with which she is covered, and silence all around here. She can be alone with herself. She likes that something has appeared in her life that was not there before. She wants this place to be her home forever. Then she heard the voice of her maid outside the door and decided to go and see what was going on there. Bella said that she didn't care what people thought of her, but they had to apologize for the words spoken about Missy. The maid snorted that the baby was actually illegitimate, wasn't she right? After which she threw her a basket and said that if the Duchess valued her little sister, she would not have hired someone like her, because she didn't really know how to do anything. Let the girl know her place and not walk around with her nose in the air. Seeing that the little girl heard everything perfectly, the girl immediately began to ask for forgiveness for not being good enough. But the girl pressed herself against her and said that she was glad that she was the one next to her. The maid was touched and immediately began to babble that she needed to go make her bed and then prepare some food. When the little girl replied that she had already done it herself, the maid immediately ran into the room as she felt embarrassed that her work had been done. Liz looked with a withering gaze in the direction of those girls who offended her assistant. After some time, our heroine thought that the side effect of yesterday's banquet still remained. The young man quickly realized that, with her help, the Marquis was trying to trample her into the dirt. The Archduke was so emotionless that at first she thought he didn't understand anything, that family got what they deserved. But how could he do such a thing in front of the emperor? How can a young man harm another person without feeling guilty about it? It is better to stay away from him. The maid noticed that she was somehow depressed and said that since they were in the capital, maybe she wanted to buy something. Perhaps some gift for the young miss. She will be very happy about it. After a while, Rachel said that she would like to take everything that was sold there. Suddenly, Carolyn's voice was heard behind her, saying that she didn't think she would meet her here. Our heroine didn't understand who these people were behind her, fans or something, so she muttered that she was still here. Harrison replied that she wanted to stay in the capital for a while. She hadn't seen her friends for a long time, so it would be a shame to arrive and leave right away. She hadn't been anywhere for a long time. Such a chance rarely comes, so she wanted to have a good time. Listening to this endless stream of words, Rachel thought to herself that it was sucking all the energy out of her. The girl added that their meeting with her was fateful. Perhaps she would also join them because they wanted to arrange a small banquet at her estate. Carolyn would be very happy if our heroine attended their celebration. After some time, Rachel thought about the fact that she had prepared tea for everyone and a glass of red wine for her. The girl said that she thought she would like it, so she put it there unless something was wrong. Our heroine hissed that she was very glad that the girl thought about her preferences. Harrison exhaled and replied that great. She was worried that she had done something wrong, after which she loudly asked everyone if everything was okay after yesterday. The boys picked up that Carolyn was very worried because Agnes almost got hurt. The Archduke has a bad reputation. Rachel thought to herself, "What kind of concern are you talking about?" Apparently she is trying to achieve something, that's why he is so polite to her. After which she thanked them for not remaining indifferent. As everyone can see for themselves, everything is fine with her, so there is nothing to worry about. When the young lady asked if she knew the Archduke, our heroine replied that they had met a couple of times at official meetings. Harrison muttered that it was very strange, the boy had never been like this before. Agnes didn't understand what she was trying to achieve. Maybe she wanted to know why he didn't attack her in a fit of anger. Was this moment really that disappointing to her? Carolyn added that she had long been interested in the Archduke, and so she thought that maybe there was something between them that she didn't know about. Then the circus with tears began again. Everyone around began to say that His Highness also knew about her feelings, so there was no need to invent anything extra. Everyone had heard that she had been in love with him for a long time. Harrison immediately calmed down and thanked for comforting her. She is surrounded by such kind people, so she is a happy person. Rachel couldn't resist asking if they wanted to tell her that she needed to apologize for being unharmed. The girl immediately asked for forgiveness for their rudeness. They were probably just scared when they saw her tears. Rachel thought to herself that she didn't need to establish connections with her family, but if she appeared in a bad light now, then her sister would have a hard time in society too. After which, smiling sweetly, she asked why she was asking for forgiveness. Only for their rudeness. Had she really completely forgotten about the rudeness on her part, Agnes was not going to indulge her. Then she turned over the glass of wine, said that it was delicious, and thanked him for the hospitality. Meanwhile, while washing himself, the young man asked if anything had happened during his absence. The butler replied that everything was fine. The palace was calm. Gerald was indignant that he needed to be more decent. Wasn't His Highness even ashamed? The Archduke replied that this was his estate, so he walked as he saw fit. Count Arthur Jorgent, who is a knight of the Lexville family, picked up on what he really liked. Dante did not calm down and shouted why he was constantly causing problems. Why he even set fire to the hand of the Marquis of Cavendish. The guy replied that he didn't start this conflict. That person wanted to use him. Apparently, he has several lives. He should have been more careful. The assistant thought to himself that the further he went, the worse the rumors about him became. He was eating people alive. He was taking a bath in human blood. He was enjoying killing others. When Arthur exclaimed that he thought everything was fine, he immediately got hit on the head with a book. Lexville asked them to stop and said that something needed to be done to let everyone know about Rachel Agnes. The young man wondered if he really had a grudge against this family. Apparently, one of the duchies would soon disappear from the face of the earth, after which he added that he would immediately take care of this issue. The young man thought to himself that he was sure that when he touched her, the curse had responded, which binds the Lexville family, which cripples it from the inside, and makes it thirst for blood, as if what it demanded had finally appeared. His father told him that he would soon follow in his footsteps, because the family curse is immortal. Death is already waiting for him. There is no point in running from fate, the boy will disappear in the flames. The personal maid ran up to him and tried to cover his eyes with her hands. But the baby still saw the man burning in the flames. It is necessary to check whether it seemed to him or whether she really is the one who can free him from the shackles of evil fate. Meanwhile, our heroine returned home and thought about how tired she was. She was met by the head maid, Ellis Visser, and said that she would report on everything that happened in the estate during her absence. They organized the supply of products along a reliable route, conducted many interviews to select employees, and placed them throughout the estate. But the butler will tell you about the mansion separately. There was also some problem. It concerns the new maid she brought. She is being bullied by the other maids. When asked how the lady would act in this situation, the girl replied that she would observe first, and that Liz would face more than one obstacle ahead. Many maids can do their jobs perfectly, but from Bella, she expects not just a job well done. Her sister's future will depend on her growth. No matter how hard she tries to protect the baby from harm, there will come a time when she simply won't have time to do it. Therefore, Bella must become Liz's confidant for such cases and be able to stand up for herself and for her. This is all just for my sister, for her comfort, happiness, and peace. Meanwhile, the woman woke up Cavendish, who was having nightmares, and told him that news had come from his father. He said that he had tolerated Agnes's antics for a long time, but the time had come to put them in their place, given that a convenient opportunity had arisen. After all, it all happened because of that girl. She will make sure that that impudent girl cannot sleep from fear. The next day, Marcus reported that Greywood had declined the meeting for this reason. The girl thought to herself that he really knows how to ruin your mood from the very morning she needs to think about something pleasant. Liz looked so cute when she woke up. She was so happy with the toy she was given. The man did not let her think about her own things, but subtly hinted that it was necessary to resolve work issues. So Rachel replied that she should try to find another organization of traders. Even if it is small, it is very important for the restoration of their territory. Many merchants left the territory, which caused most people to lose their jobs, and there was a shortage of goods due to supply problems, so prices for them skyrocketed. She intended to solve this problem, so she invited the traders to their territory to discuss the terms in advance. The largest guild, Greywood, which the girl had high hopes for, suddenly decided to cancel the meeting, and the reason for this was their mistrust of the Agnes family. So I told Marcus to find out why they suddenly changed their minds. It's bad if they start having problems early on. There should always be a way out. If plan A doesn't work, you need to go to plan B. She thought to herself that even if she were a tyrant like the Archduke of Lexville, she wouldn't be doing this now, and everyone would still bow their heads before Liz. There are 4 duchies in the empire. The lion is Agnes, the deer is Nos, the snake is Harrisman, the falcon is Lexville, although the latter would be better suited to a black raven. And most importantly, the Duchy of Nos has the best smelting technology, twins born with one soul split in two by the hatred of God. In this world, they are spoken of as such. The grandchildren of Duke Nos were born as such children in order to protect them. The family did not declare itself for 7 whole years. This invitation to the banquet was sent by them to tell the world that they had awakened from their sleep. Our heroine is not a tyrant like the Archduke, but she will do everything in her power. She needs to attend this event and stop the tragedy that could happen. A historical event, twins come out into the world, and there the Nose family will lose one of them. Meanwhile, Gerald reported that he had gathered information about the Duchy of Agnes. Although the current situation has improved, some problems still remain, their weak point being trade. They negotiated with the Greywood Guild, but the attempt was unsuccessful. That's all that is known today. The Duchess has little choice. If his predictions are correct, the last person she will turn to for help will be his lordship. Let him take advantage of this chance and deal with her once and for all, although he already has 99 ways. The young man did not understand what he was talking about or who was going to sort things out with whom's. Dante wondered if he hadn't planned to destroy the duchy. Then why did he ask to find out about her? At the Agnes estate, the maid yelled at Belle and said that because of her, she received a reprimand from the head maid. When asked what she had to do with it, the girl replied that she had ordered her to wash everything. The girl replied that it was not her responsibility. She had already done her a favor by leaving these things in the laundry. The maid grabbed her by the hair and screamed that she really had turned up her nose, just because the Duchess had dragged her in. If she wanted a normal life, she should know her place. Belle asked why her ladyship brought her to the estate, since she didn't really know whether she could cope. But Rachel replied that there were many people around who did their jobs well, but it was not easy to find someone as kind and brave as she. Her younger sister is very important to her, so she trusts her with the most valuable thing she has. Remembering these words, the girl collected her thoughts and pushed the impudent woman away from herself. If she shows weakness, the Duchess will lose confidence in her. She must not be allowed to continue to mock Miss. This must not be allowed under any circumstances. Liz suddenly appeared and asked what they were doing there. Approaching her personal maid, the girl whispered to her if she wanted this girl to disappear. This maid is bad, she constantly bothers her and doesn't leave her alone. Bella replied that she was just really angry. But if you look at it from her side, she probably really is an eyesore. After all, she studied, built a career, passed the interview, and got here. And the girl is here thanks to the Duchess. But still does not consider it right, that it is necessary to vent his anger on her. She thought to herself that it was also important for her to learn something. She didn't want others to doubt the Duchess's love for her little sister because of her. The girl thought to herself that she wanted that girl to disappear. She was not such a kind child as she seemed at first glance. The baby actually has a dark and cold soul, a strange, unpleasant child. Liz doesn't know why her sister, who shines like a star, showers her with her love. She doesn't understand why. The first toy Rachel gave her got a scratch on it, and it's starting to make her really angry. The saleswoman exclaimed that she was grateful that her ladyship had dropped in to see her. She thought that the girl had already forgotten about the existence of her studio, which is why she had managed to get upset. Our heroine replied that there was no more talented designer in these parts than Madame Eliard. So how could she forget about her? The woman replied that Rachel hadn't visited her for a long time, so she thought that perhaps she had offended her in some way. So thank you for delighting her with your presence again. The girl thought to herself that the power of wealth and power was simply amazing. It was constantly trying to flatter her. Then the lady brought a cup of tea and said that she had prepared it, especially for her. These tea petals are of the highest quality. After which she asked if she visited her studio this time because of this cute girl next to her. Our heroine replied that she also needed to pick out some things, but first of all, they were looking for outfits for Liz. The woman noted that the girl was so pretty that the dress that had just been delivered would suit her perfectly. She specially prepared it to show them, but for safety reasons, it cannot be taken out yet. When Rachel was told she needed to go to the workshop, she asked to attach a person to her sister so the baby could look. After they left, an assistant appeared, who stated that she was the same little girl of Aunt Anne's. Everyone said that she was either killed or kidnapped, but she looks noticeably better. Liz found her face familiar and began to remember the moment when her guardian pulled her hair and screamed that she had stolen potatoes from their house. In the background stood this very woman who silently watched and did not try to help in any way. Therefore, the girl asked him to leave her alone in a nice way and not to pester her with stupid conversations. The assistant still didn't calm down and replied that she had scared me too, since they had met again. Then let him do a good deed for her. She needed to buy more clothes because they had such a good relationship in the past. I thought to myself that I couldn't ask such a thing of a girl who wasn't even considered a human being. It would hurt her pride. But if she doesn't fulfill the monthly quota, then Madame will fire her. But this way, she will be able to keep her job. On this street, everyone clings to the status of even the person passing by. If he is dressed in cheap, simple clothes, then he is escorted away from that place. The most influential studio here is Eliard. She went out of her way to get a job there. She managed to get to this street with great difficulty. She should become rich and walk with her head held high. The little girl thought to herself that she absolutely did not want to meet any person who had anything to do with her past. After all, it seemed that while she was in a sweet dream, she was being forcibly returned to a cold and cruel reality. The woman was furious that she was silent for so long. So she shouted, asking if she was even listening to what her older sister was telling her. The little girl silently took the saucer with the cup of tea in her hands, after which she threw it with all her might towards the cellar and the fragments, and drops flew in different directions. The girl screamed that she was sick in the head. Did she even know how much it cost? The little girl took another glass of liquid in her hands and said that she has only one older sister who loves her very much. Pouring the contents over her head, the little one hissed, which seemed to warn that it was better not to touch her. Rachel thought to herself that the wounds she had received in the past did not heal as easily as she thought. This became clear when she saw her expression. Why can't people treat her with care without causing pain? Is it all because it is necessary to create a villain for the plot? Therefore, our heroine became completely furious and was ready to tear the culprit to pieces. The little girl cried and said that this woman said that she had no right to be here, that her level was not appropriate, and that she did not know her place. Agnes thought to herself that she was constantly offended by people. She was disappointed in them every time. No matter what the girl said, now it would not help heal the emotional wounds. Therefore, she whispered that she should remember one thing, She should not allow anyone to make fun of her, because her little sister is the most precious person to her, and she should not forget this. After some time, our heroine arrived at the event where she was greeted by Noel Nossi and also Jel Nos, who were as similar as two peas in a pod. The man thanked her for coming to visit his grandchildren. These treasures appeared at the end of his life. Listening to all this, the girl thought that after recent events, she was even more convinced that she needed strength, so that no one dares to offend Liz again, so that she does not have to cope with everything on her own. She needs to completely protect her from problems. In any world, power is the most powerful weapon, so it simply must make the Agnes family stronger than before. First of all, you need to make connections. Duke Nose is one of the 4 high-ranking aristocrats. You need to gain his trust for this. You need to save one of the twins who is supposed to get into trouble today. And in general, helping people is a very important thing. There is one catch, though. Duke Noel Nose is the second male character in the original Beloved Saint story. The main character asks him for help to destroy the Agnes family, but he closes himself off from the whole world, blaming himself for the death of his brother. The girl told him that she saw that he had suffered for a long time, but it was not his fault. God had simply called him to himself a little earlier. There was no need to reproach himself. Her small hands and beautiful speech saved Noel's inner child from eternal wandering in endless darkness. Everyone loved the saint. One word of hers could melt the eternal ice in the heart of the main character. Liz said that if a person puts on airs, then he is not so eager to achieve what he wants. Rachel was desperate when she drank poisoned wine in the novel, and her body started to freeze, so she wants to show her the love she so longed to know, so that she can be happy. Then our heroine handed the boys small gift boxes. But when the boys saw that there were whistles there, they could not hide their disappointment. The man said that it was a wonderful gift. It could help them if they got into a dangerous situation. Rachel added that no one knows where the children might run off to and what might happen to them. But watching her little sister, she decided that it would be a good idea for them to have one with them. The Duke was surprised that she had a sister. The girl explained that she had recently brought her home. Liz is 8 years old. She is very kind and sweet. Nose noted that it must have been hard for her, so why didn't he take her with him? She's almost the same age as his twins. It would be nice if they became friends. Rachel thought to herself that he seemed like a normal grandfather who loved his grandchildren, and then replied that she had had etiquette lessons, so if he didn't mind, she would bring her next time. The old man smiled and replied that of course etiquette could be learned over time, so there shouldn't be any problems in the future. The girl thought to herself that by moving into Agnes's body, she had completely changed the original plot, Let the Saint Forgive, but she must save these little ones. Although this will be done in part for the good of her sister, she cannot watch children suffer at such an early age. Meanwhile, one of the kids accidentally bumped into the young man and immediately asked for forgiveness for it. Mason Vilber, the second son of the Marquis, exclaimed that these were the same brothers. It was not proper for a boy to carry a doll around with him. It turned out that they were actually twins with their own quirks. Our heroine heard some commotion and wondered what was going on there. One of the boys had tears in his eyes. He thought to himself that from the very beginning, he did not want any kind of celebration to be held on the occasion of his birthday. In fact, none of those present came to congratulate the children from the bottom of their hearts. A birthday on which even their parents do not congratulate them, it is not surprising that others did not come here for them. The baby always reached out to his mother, asking her to at least turn around and look at him. But the woman only replied that he should leave as it irritated her, after which she threw him a teddy bear, which was all covered in needles, and told him to take it and play somewhere far away from her. The boy started to have a real hysteria. He threw the toy and shouted that his brother was also disrespected. What kind of life is this? When he calmed down a little, Jael came up to him and told him that there was no need to whine in front of his older brother. Still, it's not much, but he was born before him. Let him wait a little, and he will save his doll. Meanwhile, the man asked for forgiveness for his grandchildren because it seemed they had been a little rude to him. Mason Vilber replied that it was okay, they were still kids, but it would be good if he didn't carry this toy everywhere. It looks weird after all the guys growing up. Rachel objected that unless girls played with dolls, it was improper to teach others how to raise children, especially when a stranger did it. After which, she said that she would go and see what was going on with the boys, and let the Duke take care of the guests for now. The guy thought to himself that if it weren't for her irritability and hot temper, she would be ideal for the role of wife. On the way, the girl thought about the disgusting look he had given her. This is not the most important thing now, so there is no point in wasting time. You need to concentrate because that very event will happen. She must prevent a tragedy that could happen to the twins, so she must listen to where they are. Suddenly, Agnes heard one of the boys start blowing the whistle she had given them earlier. Meanwhile, his older brother jumped into the pond to get the toy, but he began to run out of air. But our heroine arrived in time and immediately pulled him out so that he could breathe. The baby was in complete shock from what happened because he was on the verge of life and death. The girl told Noel that he was a good boy. He didn't forget about her gift and used it for its intended purpose. Now everything will be fine. She thought to herself that this story ended well, although initially she wanted to gain the trust of Duke Nose. But now she is more pleased that the children remained safe. Suddenly, the Archduke of Lexville appeared, who stated that someone had already managed to take a bath. When the kids ran to him, screaming that their uncle had arrived, Rachel was shocked that they were related. One of them asked if the boy could light a fire, because he was cold. He replied that no, but they couldn't be left outside, or they would get sick, so they had to go inside quickly. Suddenly, he said that Agnes should go too. Let her go after them. Our heroine replied that she was already on her way, but she thought to herself that there had to be a happy ending. After a while, the little one was capricious and said he didn't want to go wash himself because he had already bathed in the pond. The young man replied that his grandfather already knew everything, and if he wanted to appear before him in this form, he didn't have to go to the bathroom. The Archduke recalled that he saw a girl running, and who was she so desperately trying to catch up with? The silver light dissipates in the night that has swallowed everything around, and suddenly a sound is heard that has attracted his attention. Now he is sure that this girl is a butterfly. If you take her in your hands, she will break into small pieces. Rachel felt extremely awkward being alone with him. She thought to herself where the twins had gone. She missed them so much. Why the hell was this guy keeping his eyes on her? After which, she asked him if he was now thinking that she should have been burned, along with the hand of the Marquis of Cavendish. The young man ignored this question and asked his own about whether she knew in advance that Jael had fallen into the pond. Our heroine replied that she didn't understand what he was even talking about now. The Duke replied that if she was uncomfortable answering this question, he would not force her because he did not want to know about this. Then the young man approached her and asked her to give him her hand. Looking at her frightened expression, the guy added that she herself should have already understood that he was not going to harm her. Rachel carefully began to extend her palm towards him, asking him along the way if he was sure he wasn't going to burn it. Lexville was fed up with all this, so he hissed that he should have spoken to her differently. From the start, let her give him her hand immediately if she didn't want to die. The Duchess immediately realized that if he needed her hand so much, then he had to do it. He said such terrible things and didn't even blink an eye, just as she thought the rumors about him were true. It seemed to the girl that cold blood flowed through him, and his hands were warmer than expected. Perhaps this was the influence of magic. In general, it is necessary to think positively, when else will she be able to observe such a beautiful person up close? Suddenly, the young man broke into a smile and exclaimed that he had found it. While the Duchess did not understand what was happening, the guy pulled her towards him and said that they would see each other soon. Suddenly, the doors swung open, and the man immediately shouted that Jael was a scoundrel. Then he stopped and asked what was going on, after which he noticed that the Archduke was holding the girl's hand. Therefore, he immediately began to shout that it was forbidden to kill people in his house. After some time, the twins asked if their younger sister was as beautiful as Rachel, and if they could be friends with her. Their grandfather thanked her for her help and said that he did not know how to repay her for it. If he needed something, they would help her under any circumstances. The girl thought to herself that she had managed for an inexperienced duchess. It was impossible, but she was able to gain their favor and tied them with strong bonds. His promise is worth more than all the gold in the world, and it will greatly help in protecting Liz and Agnes's family. Although she grabbed something sinister, why did the Archduke smile like that then? No matter how much she thought about it, she still felt uneasy. A tyrant in a fantasy world is very alarming. Why did he need her hand at all? Maybe it was some kind of sedative, but perhaps she read too many novels in her past life. Lexville is hard to find anywhere, except at banquets. In honor of his victory in the war, it is necessary to keep as far away as possible until his interest in her fades. Meanwhile, the young man said that last time during his report, he talked about how to deal with Duchess Agnes. He wants to hear the details. Geralt was taken aback for a second, but slowly began to tell everything. Greywood is a very large and powerful merchant guild that is located in the south of the Agnes Duchy, judging by the fact that they refused Rachel. Their relationship will be ruined. The guy replied that it was a large union, so they decided to act confidently. But even if now is the heyday of the county of Wickens, aren't they underestimating the duchy too much? Their opponent is one of the respected families of the empire. But the assistant objected that at the moment it was too weak for Duchess Agnes to do anything, and if Gaywood interfered, there would be trouble. Since the girl has only recently taken over her possessions, many difficulties will arise ahead. The last option for her will be only one place, the one where the guild's influence is limited. This is the Lexville Duchy. The young man noted to himself that all he could do was wait. He had to be patient, so he would wait until she came to him herself. Meanwhile, Count Wickens was screaming that he would never forgive this girl. His son-in-law was left without an arm, and now he was forced to live this life. The servant tried to calm him down and said that everything was going according to plan. There was no need to get so angry, it would have a bad effect on his health. The man thought to himself that not only had she raised taxes 6 months ago, after which he had to suffer heavy losses, but she had also made a laughingstock of his daughter's husband. He will simply tear her to shreds. She will pay for the sins of Archduke Lexville. Rachel Agnes will have to come to him and crawl on her knees before him. At this moment, our heroine felt that someone was remembering her, so she wondered who it was. Then she asked Marcus what he thought about what she told him. The assistant asked if she wanted to issue weapons from the Nose family to knights above the title of centurion. But this dynasty allocates almost % of the weapons to the imperial family, and the rest they give to the market. The Agnes family has at their disposal an army of men, considering that the aristocrats who hold a title below count have about men in their army. They have a lot of men. Even if the weapons were given only to centurion, it would be a huge amount of money, and the supply of materials is problematic. The girl asked, what if they bought weapons not at the market? She was sure that the Duke would gladly agree to her proposal. The man was shocked that she wanted to make a deal directly, but Rachel continued that there was no need to worry. Let him find out right away how much guns they needed. She was just about to visit them again, as she wanted Liz to have friends. In the original story, due to the loss of her brother Noel, becomes her sister's most dangerous enemy. But this time, they had to become her supporters, and the girl replied that Rachel was enough for her. Our heroine exclaimed that as soon as she has friends, she will definitely speak differently. These boys are very cute and handsome, and for her, they will become wonderful comrades. She thought to herself that apparently she was afraid of new acquaintances. She would try to dispel her fear so that she would not be afraid to live, so that colors would appear in her life. Therefore, let her not close herself off from the world. She must be ready to spread her wings and take off. Until her little sister gets back on her feet, our heroine will help her in everything and protect her. Then she turned to her assistant and said that now they could listen to the report on Greywood. Marcus reported that they control every trading point in the duchy. Since this guild is the largest, it has a colossal influence on the others. When some merchants want to sell something to the duchy, the members of the union persuade them by naming an amount 10 times larger. Their goal is only one thing: to sow chaos in the Duchy of Agnes. Rachel asked what had gotten into them. Did he still not know why they had turned down their offer back then? The assistant replied that he just wanted to clarify some points, whether she had a conflict with Count Wickens. The girl said she had no idea who it was. Marcus said he had not met her in person, but this man is the owner of Greywood. Even if we accept the idea that they harbored a grudge because of the sudden tax increase 6 months ago, such actions can only be regarded as a declaration of war. The man added that this was the end of the report. But by the way, there was one more thing. They said that the Count's son-in-law had recently lost his arm. Maybe after that he went crazy. It dawned on our heroine that then Count Wickens is the Marquis of Cavendish. Rachel muttered that it was all over, but the man didn't understand what she was talking about. Being the head of a large guild, he harbored a grudge against an innocent person. What nonsense then, there is only one way out. After a short period of time, she was already at the Archduke's and said that he had told her that they should see each other soon, and so it happened. The young man stated that it was probably because of Greywood. Our heroine replied that it turns out that he himself knows what issue she came to him about. The Archiepiscopacy of Lexville is part of the empire, but it has autonomy recognized by the imperial family. In other words, it is almost an independent state. So Rachel said that she needs a guild from his domain, so she wants to make a deal. If Greywood dares to entice Lexville merchants or put pressure on them, the situation will not end in a simple conflict. It will mean that they are ready to start a war. And if a serious discord arises, the imperial family will not leave the guild alone. The young man asked what benefit he would get from this, what he would receive in return. The girl replied that that evening he told her that he had found it, and if what he needed was with her, then she was ready to make a deal with him. The guy asked whether she was ready to give him whatever he asked for. Our heroine replied that, unless it was necessary to give him her life, the young man stated that it would not be so difficult. He wanted to check something on her body. Agnes was taken aback by this turn of events and abruptly pulled her hand back. But Lexville pulled her close and said that he didn't know how many dirty thoughts were running through her head, but he wasn't interested in that. Our heroine replied that only his behavior did not correspond to the words he said. The young man stated that apparently she really does not feel anything. His conditions are simple. He will hold her hand whenever he wants. There is no special reason for it. His help will come to her practically for nothing, considering that she must save her people who are in danger of dying from starvation. Rachel thought to herself that she thought she would have to make a bad and expensive deal, but fortunately, she was able to save her precious money, which was something to be happy about. So she replied that she agreed. Having added in parting that her hand now belonged to the Archduke, our heroine went home. The maids of the Lexville estate were shocked that someone had visited this place, and a girl at that. She will never know how carefully the maids cleaned the guest room and the hallway, but she still wants her to have good memories of the palace. After some time, the Count was freaking out, wondering what was going on, why this Lexville suddenly decided to enter into an agreement with Agnes. The assistant replied that there were no other options. His guild would take all the places of their merchants. The man was furious because his daughter was eagerly awaiting the collapse of the Agnes family. She had broken the unwritten rule not to touch the Archduke, and there were no romantic rumors about him, because everyone thought he was into men, that this had come over him because of some girl. The guy replied that it hardly had anything to do with gender. Perhaps the Archduke wanted to increase the size of his market, so he decided to make an agreement. After all, he rejected the daughter of Harrisman himself. It dawned on Wickens that yes, the assistant had said that she was unrequitedly in love with Lexville. Therefore, it is worth simply pushing these dukes to tear each other's throats. He urgently needs to send a letter to the girl's father. Meanwhile, Rachel returned home, and everyone rejoiced that it was only a matter of time before the duchy would return to its white glory as expected from their mistress. Our heroine interrupted them and asked a question that perhaps the Archduke had simply fallen in love with her, after which there was a pause. Marcus immediately dropped all the papers from his hands, and the knight ran to call the doctor. After some time, our heroine thought that the Marquis of Vilbour, the former duke, and his wife did not like Rachel. He said that she was not strong enough to compete with other duchesses. Was she really that weak in his eyes? They didn't get along very well. Why then did he send her an invitation to the celebration? It is impossible to simply ignore this invitation, since it is unclear what everyone will say about it. How much time has passed since her return? My sister will be very upset. But she is an adult who has a job, so Liz will understand and wait for her. Rachel, the illegitimate child of the Agnes family, is looked down upon by everyone as a foolish child. But what about Liz? At years old, she should become a duchess. How often she was underestimated, sometimes such thoughts visit her. And each time this happens, she begins to love the baby more and more. Even though she doesn't like the fact that she has to spend time with those people for her sake, thoughts about their future together help her to continue fighting. After which she sent a letter to the young man in the Archduchy of Lexville. Geralt was telling him something, but then noticed that the young man was not listening to him at all. Therefore, he drew his attention to himself and said that there was still much to report to him. It was time to leave, but the imperial family was still silent about what they should do. The guy replied that they would forget about it for a while. There was no need to worry since he had a backup plan. The assistant thought to himself that lately he had no idea what His Highness was thinking about. Dante thought that Lexville would wipe the Agnes family off the face of the earth. But no, rather it happened just the opposite. He helped her without taking a penny. The gentleman never behaved in this way. He got nothing from these negotiations. Apparently, he is extremely interested in this particular girl. Looking at him now, it is extremely difficult to believe it. A faithful servant, for the first time in a long time of service, cannot guess his intentions. What kind of alternative plan did he even have? The Archduke's magical powers must be regularly fed with blood. And not animals at all, a small amount is not enough. Magic requires precisely human, and if you don't get it in time, then there will be trouble. The young man said that it seemed that the emperor was brazenly trying to play his game. Every legitimate emperor knew about the curse of the Lexville family. The previous dukes, like Theo, regulated their affairs with the rulers. But His Current Highness killed the previous one and imprisoned the heir in a forgotten place. And even though it was decided that the secret of the Lexville family would remain a secret, the emperor probably guesses that his obsession with war is not just a boy's whim. The assistant said that the ruler was choosing a very foolish path, after which he asked whether he would get rid of him. The young man replied that not now. It, in the imperial palace, was still too young, but there was something he would like to know right now. He thought to himself that sooner or later, the thirst for blood would get the better of him again. It might be risky, but the game was worth the candle. After which he muttered that it would be very interesting to see what would come of this Rachel Agnes. Meanwhile, the little girl asked if it was okay that she was strange, if she would always be on her side. Our heroine answered that of course her older sister would be with her, but she thought to herself that maybe she didn't know, but she knew a lot about her. Rachel wants the little one to be happy. When the girl arrived at the event, she was immediately met by Marquis Vilbert, who said that they had not seen each other for a long time. The man thanked her for finding time to visit, despite being busy. Agnes replied that it was nothing special. It was time for her to go out into society, but she thought to herself that if it weren't for her father's status, he would have easily crushed her with his authority. I wonder if it's hard for him to talk about her becoming a duchess. The emperor made every second person, even those who barely know how to run a business, a duke. Vilbert continued to broadcast that she had grown so much that if a stranger looked at them from the outside, he would think that she was his wife. She would fit perfectly into his collection, but she doesn't want to lose her status as a duchess. Agnes thought to herself that it was just ridiculous that he thought a 20-year-old girl would want to marry him. This man is one of those who believes that only a man can rule a duchy. But the Marquis said that he heard that she has a lot of problems, so if she needs help, let her ask. He has many connections with other duchies. Perhaps from the height of his experience, he can advise her something. Our heroine thanked him for his interest and said that she dared to remind him that she was not some little girl but a duchess, and whether he could really help her. This is for everything that happened, after which a picture of the moment when Liz took poison popped into her head. The young man approached her and muttered that they say that a witch's tears mean rain, after which he added whether she now felt the longing of the young man. Meanwhile, the little girl was thinking that she missed her little sister. She didn't like being alone with her thoughts. When she went to get a snack, Bella didn't say anything to her, but it seems that this maid named Mary is making fun of her again. The girl doesn't explain anything to her, and for some reason has begun to spend little time with her in recent days. The servants treated her worse and worse, which is why she's sweet and naive becomes harsher. The maid asked if she had really locked it. Bella was the Duchess's maid. If anyone found out, it would be the end of her. The girl was indignant that she really had time to think about some maids, or she wanted to say that she had no other things to do. The little one, who heard all this perfectly well, thought that it was true. Her sister did not have much time to think about simple servants. Even though it may seem from the outside that the little girl cannot stand up for herself, this is absolutely not true. When the maids left, the girl came to the door and asked if Bella was there. The girl exclaimed, "Could she call someone? The door cannot be opened without a key." The little one replied that she should be patient for a little while, and she would definitely get her out of there. She thought to herself that if her sister was too busy to take care of the servants, she had to force her to pay attention to them. Meanwhile, the Marquise declared that, of course, she was no longer just the Duke's daughter, But he did not know whether the girl was worthy of occupying this place. If she wants his respect, then let her deserve it. Does she really think that anything remains of Agnes's former greatness? She expresses respect to him, although deep down she is disgusted by it. Our heroine laughed loudly and replied that it was not for nothing that they said that Wilbur's power was great. Apparently, he was more important than the emperor himself. Is it really true that, doubting her dignity, he disputes the ruler's decision? In general, when the head of the family changes, it is his word that is decisive. The man replied that it was very clever. But how dare she mention His Majesty in simple conversation? He was going to give her advice. He knew what it was like to live under the same roof with an illegitimate child. The girl thought to herself that this was too much. How dare he involve Liz in this? After which she stated that she knew it. He is not the one to whom one should give advice before insulting her and her loved ones. Maybe he will take a look at himself. There are constant rumors that his second son is always bringing home courtesans. She thought to herself that she would not silently tolerate insults. People like him needed to be answered. The man hissed that the girl had become even more impudent than before. Then he threw a handkerchief in her direction and said that he was declaring a proxy war. She would pay for her actions. This method is often used in conflicts between noble dynasties. If a regional war is a global event, then a proxy war is just a duel. A fair fight will determine the outcome of the battle. So our heroine thought to herself that she didn't think she had a chance of winning. The losing party automatically agrees to all the conditions of the opponent. He will certainly not demand her property or, moreover, her life. But it can very well make you bend your knee, which means she needs a knight who can win, but she doesn't even know how good he should be, because she doesn't know the level of training of the Wilbur Knights. The man thought to himself that the spy had whispered to him that all her defenders were useless. Did she have any idea how much his knights earned? Will the girl who destroyed her estate be able to defeat him? The impudent petty girl whom no one takes seriously? Suddenly, the Archduke of Lexville appeared, who declared that he accepted his challenge. Our heroine herself was surprised by this turn of events. Isn't he close to Wilbur? The Marquise, who was in complete shock, asked what he meant. The young man replied that he would repeat it again. His challenge was accepted. When the man was indignant that it was the Duchess who had actually challenged him to a duel, the boy replied that he had heard that they were outstanding knights, so he would like to see for himself. The girl didn't understand what he was doing. Did he really have anything to share with Wilbur? But what worries her most is why he is interfering in a proxy war. But she would be grateful if an experienced knight would help her. The Marquis suddenly became gloomy and replied that he would contact him a little later. Then the Marquise simply began to leave since there was nothing else left to do. Was he really that scared? Then she began to feel somehow strange. For some reason it became very hot. The young man clearly felt very ill, and with his last strength he asked her to give him her hand. While Rachel didn't understand what was happening and hesitated, the guy reminded her of the promise to give her his hand when needed. At that moment, she thought that this guy was not right for her, and deep down, she didn't even like him. She thought he was made of steel, so she thought his appearance didn't suit him. Suddenly, that day, which was more like a dream, came back to her mind. What incredible pain brings him to such a state that it causes such reckless courage? Then she felt warmth. Could it be the influence of the flame of the Archduke of Lexville? But it was too hot, her hands would burn. It is said that an awakening magician instinctively understands how to use powers. They also freely feel the moment of awakening itself. Just like now, it turns out that she really does have magical abilities. Suddenly, the girl lost consciousness, and the young man picked her up in his arms, after which a smile appeared on his face, and the young man muttered that soon the curse of the Lexville family would fall. Rachel would become their salvation. Meanwhile, Carolyn was thinking about the letters she was constantly receiving. It seemed that there was no one more influential in the empire than she was. After which, she decided to start today with a story about how all these mayflies are chasing her beauty. She always finds it interesting to watch how they try to amuse her. All the letter writers either want to be friends with her or want her love. This man, Count Wickens, is very interesting. He didn't even send a letter to his father, wire right away. A maid appeared in the office and saw that all the letters were on the floor, after which she asked for forgiveness and said that she would close the window right away. The girl said that there was no need to rush. Everything was fine because she was such a cutie. The maid was delighted by such kindness and thought about how such a sincere mistress would live in this cruel world. When the lady began to read one of the letters, Mary thought that apparently she was again reading messages from all those men. Then she handed her a newspaper and said that she hoped it would cheer her up. There was news about the Archduke in it. Then she added that it seemed he was at the banquet of the Marquise of Vilbur. She had not read it yet, so Miss would be first have a good day. Let her enjoy her tea and rest. From the newspaper, the girl learned about what happened at the event and how Lexville stood up for Agnes. It seems their relationship has noticeably improved. How can this day be good even in front of the maids? She maintains her image. But how can she remain just as beautiful if the guy she wants is carried away by another Maybe he's crazy, of course, but chasing after such a narcissistic girl is strange. Too many coincidences lately. Is it really inevitable? If Harrisman is the sun, then Agnes is the moon. The girl can never lose. She is simply obliged to eclipse her. Why does the Archduke choose her? He is strong, handsome, and cruel. No one will make him happier than Carolyn, and if his heart belongs to her, then she will be able to say with confidence that there is not a single person left in the world who does not love her. The love and attention of a young man is a privilege that only she will enjoy. If anyone tries to deprive her of this, they will go straight to hell. But she's not going to get her hands dirty. Rachel is just fresh meat that's just come out, and since she's touched the rose, she better be prepared to meet the thorns. Meanwhile, our heroine suddenly came to her senses and became frightened since she did not immediately realize where she was. The young man asked her not to twitch so much because her head would spin. When the girl asked how long she had slept, the young man replied that about a few hours. When asked where they were and where they were going, the guy replied that she was asking what was already clear. Rachel looked at her hands and said that he had to explain everything to her. She didn't quite understand what was going on. The Archduke replied that no way rumors about the Lexville blood curse had long since died down. Agnes thought to herself that this man was scaring her, and then asked if he would tell her anything else. The young man asked if she really wanted to know more. Our heroine thought to herself how stupid she had been at that moment when she had sympathized with him. It was clear right away that he was cursed, and besides, it was hard to see his pain. Out of fear, she unconsciously used magic, so it was a surge of energy. Perhaps thanks to her strength, she did not die from the herb Piero, because the doctor said that after such poisoning, only magicians or saints who awakened special powers in themselves survive. From all this, it turned out that the Archduke needed the girl. Perhaps he should offer to change the price of the deal. If our heroine looks at him every day, then perhaps all the fear will go away. But isn't magic something like physical strength, like muscles, even if it was just one moment? But Lexville's energy seemed to be crying. But maybe it seemed to her because of her poor condition. After some time, Arthur informed her ladyship that they had arrived. The girl was surprised that she was brought home, so she asked why. Where were her knights? Had they really been killed? But the young man replied that no, on the contrary, they were ready to kill the Archduke for her. The guys are completely fine, they will just be unconscious for a while. After which, the young people added that it was time for them to go see you soon. Rachel was indignant that they would really leave her. The day was just terrible. She was so exhausted from this whole thing with magic that she was going to pass out again next time she would have to give the order not to touch her people. She was immediately met by the senior maid, who informed her that the bath was ready and that they would immediately begin preparing dinner for her. When Rachel asked to tell Liz that they should have dinner together, the girl replied that the miss knew that she was coming, so she was expecting her say. Suddenly, our heroine heard some noise and saw the maid pushing her little sister down the stairs. The little girl believed that if a person chooses politeness and caution to achieve a goal, then he is either weak or stupid. So she went up to the maid and asked if she had expected to see her. The girl immediately thought to herself that she had probably seen the girl bullying Bella. But why is she so friendly? She is very uncomfortable, so she asked if the miss had anything to tell her. The little one took her hands and said that, of course, she was very glad about their chance meeting. The Duchess's sister thanked her for everything, after which she leaned back and began to spin, holding on to her row. At some point, her palm slipped, and the little girl tumbled down the stairs. Our heroine, who saw all this happen, before her eyes screamed in horror. Liz thought to herself that the main thing was not to smile too much, otherwise they would understand that she was pretending. In this cry, Agnes expressed all her anxiety and all her love. The baby didn't understand whether Rachel was angry or about to cry. It was unlikely that she would ever see her love so clearly again. She could only enjoy this moment. Does she remember how she told her not to let anyone break her heart? Let her not forget how important she is to her. Let the big sister not worry no one, and nothing can hurt her anymore. After she pointed at the maid, the knights immediately grabbed her. After some time, the doctor said that the Duchess was now making a decision regarding that maid. So let Bella look after the young lady for now, and he would go get the medicine. The girl was shocked. How could she be so cruel to little miss, as if she didn't care about the punishment? After the man left, the baby immediately opened her eyes and asked if Bella was faithful to her. When the girl answered that yes, the baby stated that a quick answer was very good. In fact, the maid guessed that it was all a well-planned performance. Liz added that she really likes the maid, so let her continue in the same spirit. Meanwhile, the doctor told Rachel that the best thing they could do for the young mistress was to severely punish the maid and try to prevent such an incident from happening again. The man also added that in such moments one needs to show greater firmness. Agnes agreed with him. She simply could not forgive herself for her carelessness. This world was a living fantasy for her, which is why she was overconfident that she could cope. But Liz almost died. What was happening was going beyond all bounds. She realized this only after her sister was hurt twice, so she is very angry with herself. She herself knows very well the feeling when you yourself are pierced by the blade of enmity. In her past life, everyone told her that she was defenseless, that she should have tried harder, that it seemed like she had already caught the star. Therefore, she stated that everyone should understand perfectly well that this girl is her most precious child. She regards this as an attempted murder. Such things are not forgiven. She orders the employee of the studio who offended Liz in the past, and the maid who harmed her now to be punished in the most severe way. When everyone present was about to leave, our heroine asked the doctor to stay for a minute. She wants to talk about his words. The man said that the Pierrot herb is safe only for the saint and special magicians. What are these magicians anyway? The doctor asked if she knew that in this world everything exists in balance. You can start with the fact that it is extremely difficult to meet a magician. In fact, nothing is known about them. Heaven and earth, mountains and sea, happiness and sorrow, good and evil, everything has an opposite, and magic is no exception. For example, the Archduke's magic pairing would be water magic, although he has no idea why he is the only fire mage with purple mana. So among all the varieties of magic, there is one that cleanses evil, and it is wielded by magicians of light. The girl asked if she was very different from the divine power. The doctor replied that no, these are different things. Divine power is the power of God, and magic is the power of people. The main purpose of the divine is to heal with vital energy. The magic of light is to destroy filth. Only once in the long history of the empire was it recorded that a light mage purified the poison of the Pierrot herb. There were no more records, including about the dark mages, so it is very difficult to learn more about them. Our heroine thought to herself that nothing was said about this in the original, so she doesn't know either. If she has the power of purification, then it follows that the Archduke is tormented by something sinister. Just don't say that her hands are like some kind of tranquilizer for him. From the very beginning, she didn't want to have anything to do with that man. She already clearly sees her difficult future on the horizon, because his curse must be kept in the strictest confidence. After some time, Agnes came to her sister and said that she wanted to apply the ointment, and then they would go to bed, because she was trying to make sure that there was no scar left on her forehead. After which she kissed her on the forehead, asked for forgiveness, and said thank you for the fact that she remained safe and sound, because if something had happened to her, she simply would not have survived it. Suddenly, the little girl looked into her eyes and said that when she cried, her heart hurt. Our heroine thought to herself, what a charming child she was. Today, Rachel suddenly imagined what it would be like if she completely retained the appearance of the original character. With a stern look, the little one would say, "How dare she touch her maid?" Liz would defeat the villain with her own hands. But returning to such thoughts, she understands that she would not particularly like this. Whatever she is, she will remain loved by her. But she knows very well that the bricks from which this strong wall is built are usually made of endless wounds and grievances. After which she asked if her sister remembered what Agnes had told her last time. The little one answered that yes, that she was the dearest person to her. Rachel replied that indeed, the girl loved the baby more than anyone in the world. But now it was time to sleep. Let her have a wonderful dream. The man recalled how he declared that he had won against his older brother. He would make sure that not a trace of his soul remained. Now he is emperor, and this place rightfully belongs to him and to no one else. Then he turned to the crown prince Idvik von Kistor and told him not to twitch, since he would not deprive him of the throne. Looking at him again, he realized that the boy was an exact copy of his older brother. He has exactly the same hair and eye color. It's like someone is making fun of him. After which, he ordered the crown prince to be locked in a closed palace. But he had to continue on his way. He thought to himself whether it was worth making him crazy with the poison that his older brother used. If he leaves an heir in that palace, no one will dare to say anything to him, because now there is no one above him. Suddenly, a male voice was heard, asking if he was the next emperor. His Highness was surprised who this was, and how he got here. The young man looked at him carefully and said that he was offering him a deal. A servant came running after him and began to ask for forgiveness for the fact that the Archduke had entered here without permission. The man hissed that he really didn't know a damn thing, ruling a small piece of land. How dare he, an insignificant Archduke, offer him the Emperor a deal after ascending to the throne? The first thing he would do would be to replace him. Lexville got tired of hearing all this, so he decided to resort to his magical abilities. After which, he turned the assistant who stood directly behind the Emperor into a small pile of ashes. Then he asked whether His Highness was now ready to begin the conversation. The man was completely horrified and did not understand what was happening. The guy continued that he should simply provide him with the battlefield under a noble pretext, then his flame would not turn towards the Empire. The Emperor replied that fine, but in return, he wanted the young man to be near him during every victory reception, since he had seized power and had no solid ground under his feet. The Archduke grinned and said that, although he was trembling, he had spoken to him. It was worth recognizing his bravery. Therefore, the deal was made. This empire was now his. The man asked the boy if he remembered the day he first wore the imperial crown, overthrowing his father, an incompetent former emperor. That day should have been the happiest, but everything turned out wrong. Doesn't he want to ask why? He simply realized that neither his pathetic father nor the previous ignorant rulers were able to control Lexville. With his characteristic arrogance, the boy dared to ignore him, the emperor of this country. The kid replied that he understood him because he was the majestic emperor of the Castor Empire. The man grinned and continued that he had heard that the Archduke had appeared at Marquis Vilbert's, and he was still wondering where the guy had disappeared to without saying goodbye or asking his permission. Did he really intend to trample his reputation into the dirt? Not only did he cause a stir during the victory banquet, but after all this, not only did he not come with an apology, but he also hangs around wherever he wants. The boy muttered that he was ready to receive punishment instead of his incompetent predecessors. His Highness noted that he had learned the previous lesson, while someone had to pay for the sins of previous generations, after which he ordered that he be taken away, beaten and locked in a closed palace for a week. A week had passed since that incident. Her sister was recovering quickly. She would never tell her this, but before she got here, her world was gray and gloomy. Absolutely, no one defended her. Everyone only judged her. Malicious comments and criticism became a part of her life. She was pierced time and time again by caustic spear-like comments that deeply wounded her heart. From the bleeding wound, along with her faith in herself, flowed her very being. The girl was afraid that someone would see her and start pointing fingers and criticizing her again. Before going out, she dressed in such a way that she was unrecognizable and in every possible way avoided contact with people, but a person cannot live alone. Our heroine was able to continue her miserable existence thanks to her light, hoping deep down that she would finally meet her soulmate and her world would become brighter and her outlook broader. But despite these thoughts, weren't they too carefree? Wasn't it vain of her to think that, like Liz in the novel, she could cope with everything? Her thoughts were interrupted by her sister's voice. Rachel immediately realized that she had actually been reading a book, so she apologized for being lost in thought. Before introducing Jael and Noel, the girl decided to tell her a story about twins. Perhaps this was also her uncontrollable greed. The twins will be disappointed, but next time it is better to go to the Duke alone. The little girl asked if they really looked like two peas in a pod. Agnes replied that yes, but if you look closely, you can find a lot of differences. The girl muttered that she would like to look at them. Could she look at them? Our heroine was surprised at first, but then replied that she would introduce her to them. The guys are wonderful, so they should become friends. The little one replied that, okay, she thought to herself, if this makes her little sister happy, then so be it. Meanwhile, Carolyn was thinking that no matter how much she thought about it, it was all too strange. The only place she could see him was at the victory reception. The thoughts were interrupted by the voice of the girls who were discussing what happened in the residence of the Marquise. It is very interesting how it all began. Vilbur challenged Agnes, and the Archduke said that he would act as her knight. One of them exclaimed that it was very romantic. Had the young people really started dating already? Harrisman immediately began to pretend to cry in order to attract attention to herself. The girl was immediately bombarded with reproaches. That didn't she know how deep the Miss's feelings were? How tactless it was at first glance. You couldn't tell that the Viscount's daughter was so inattentive. Apparently, she was not taught that she should think first and then speak. Maria tried to justify herself, but no one listened to her. Carolyn stated that she knew that the day might come when the boy would look at someone else, but it was her fault that she was not ready for it. The girl continued to try to ask for forgiveness, but the young lady ignored her, after which she said that she was not feeling well, so she had to leave everyone. One of the guests said that if she feels bad, she should come home quickly. They will definitely wait for her at the next event. When she left, Maria was immediately bombarded with lessons about her manners. How could she have behaved like that? If she has an etiquette teacher, then his qualifications should be questioned. How shocked was the vulnerable miss since she immediately left this meeting. Meanwhile, the maid was surprised that her mistress left the event so early. Harrison said they were going home and asked if she could convey a request to her father to send a red rose to Viscount Montreal. Let her also say that she intends to visit them, since it is necessary to ask them to settle one issue. After a short period of time, she was already asking her father to give her a place next to the Archduke, because with his capabilities, this should be realistic. Brick thought to himself that whether his daughter could really be married to someone who even the Emperor found difficult to deal with was an attractive idea. But Archduke Lexville was a very dangerous guy. As much as he wanted power, it would only be worth it if he could calmly control it. And that guy was the type that could be cornered. Rather, the young man himself uses others and throws them away as unnecessary. So why, out of such a huge number of men, did the daughter's gaze fall on this particular guy? The girl added that it was better this way than giving it to Duchess Agnes, wasn't it? The man laughed and asked, what did she really think that a boy who, like a eunuch, had never been interested in women, would suddenly start such an affair? He thought to himself that by concealing the dirty deeds of the current emperor and demonstrating unwavering loyalty, he had managed to gain power, which became the core of their family. No matter how you look at it, the strength of the imperial faction is great, so the emergence of opposition is inevitable, and it was the former Duke Agnes. The Harrismans have earned their success, so their house is different from the ancient line of the Duke. The Agnes genus has quite a long history. Powerful forces followed them, but now they are destroyed. Thanks to the jewelry work, the man will not be caught. But suddenly, they find out the truth, and Lexville decides to help the Duchess avenge her parents, so he asked if his daughter could handle it. Carolyn replied that if that girl could do it, then she could definitely do it. His daughter, a beautiful hothouse flower. Many men declared that they would sacrifice their lives for her. But now that it became known that Theo has an interest in women, his efforts may pay off, after which he replied that it was okay, and added that she would not meet the family of Viscount Montreal again, since her father had sent them his reddest rose. The girl exclaimed in mock exclamation that it was a pity because she was a very beautiful girl. Meanwhile, our heroine admired how beautiful her little sister was, simply charming. She smeared the wound every day, and a crust had already formed. Everything is healing very quickly. How good that everything turned out well. After which, she told her again that she looked wonderful, and now it was time to go since the twins were impatiently waiting for her. I thought to myself that Liz is so beautiful. What if the boys fall in love with her? Noel is eliminated immediately because he is the one who will fall head over heels in love with the saint and help destroy her little sister's army. But Jael has done nothing wrong, so she will postpone the verdict on him. although she thinks it would be great if the Duke of Nos twins fell in love with her baby. It would be desirable if not only they, but also the future protagonist of the novel, would give her his heart. Although he is absolutely not suitable for the role of her lover, because he is the main culprit of her suicide, the guy decided that crown princes are allowed to do anything, and she would never allow this, not for any price. The little sister did not understand what was happening to her and asked worriedly if everything was okay. Our heroine recalled that Liz always thought that no matter how high she rose, no matter how much power she possessed, the label of an illegitimate child would follow her everywhere like a long train. The Marquise reported that a dirty bastard had come to the banquet, an insult to the members of the imperial family. The girl thought to herself that he obviously also wanted to say a couple of strong words in her direction, but nothing surprising. All Imperials are the same. So she answered that, yes, a bastard. And so what? The young man replied that before him stood an emperor who had spent half his life locked up like a wild animal. The man doesn't feel like he's the one making the dirtiest comments right now. It's not funny at all. Liz didn't know this fact about him, but it only makes him more brilliant. She wants him to belong to her. It was he who helped his sister to know herself. A man who knows how to listen and has gone through many difficulties is the best option for her. But the most important thing is that he does not hurt her. Let such a person just try to appear on her path. I wonder where the main character is now. She probably lives somewhere among the common people, because she will only appear in years. She just wishes that she never appeared in public. The very thought of the heroine surrounded by love makes her feel sick. Perhaps it is all due to her low self-esteem. Being an actress, she was never able to receive even a bit of love. Her thoughts were interrupted by the Duke's voice, who asked if everything was okay. Perhaps he should have taken care of her trip's safety from the very beginning. The girl replied that everything was fine. She was just thinking. Rumors of the attack of the Archduke of Lexville on the Duchess Agnes reached the lands of the Nos family. Now is not the time to be distracted by extraneous thoughts. Since rumors have reached here, it will not surprise her at all if they send her a wreath of condolences. So she decided she had to stop daydreaming, and then replied that the child was her younger sister Liz. The little girl immediately bowed and greeted her new acquaintances. The boys' jaws responded, and they looked at her with their mouths open. The man suggested giving the children the opportunity to spend time together while they themselves took care of business. Our heroine replied that, well, she just needed to discuss something with him, after which she asked the young gentleman to take care of her little sister. On the way, No said that he had heard in general terms about what had happened at the Marquise's residence and whether the Archduke had really used magic on her. Rachel thought to herself that Theo's curse was a secret. It was not beneficial to report that she was able to help. So she replied that everything was too complicated. She could only say that the guy did not intend to harm her. The man replied that it was true, although it was too tactless to say such words. But if he had such intentions, she would no longer be alive. Then he suggested moving on to the main point. Meanwhile, the children came to the greenhouse of the ducal residence, and one of the twins sat her down at the table. The little girl had too serious an expression on her face, and the boys didn't understand what was wrong. When the girl looked at them sharply, the boys asked why she was looking at them like that. The girl replied that because they looked like trash, she hoped that in the future they would no longer invite her and her sister to visit, and thus save them from unnecessary trouble. The boy asked why she behaved this way. Did she also not like that they were twins? Liz asked in surprise what he was talking about, since the idea of separating twins was only popular among the nobility. The kid asked, "Then what's the matter? Could she at least give a reason if she doesn't like the greenhouse? Then they can call the gardener, and he will fix the landscape. If they don't like the dessert, they'll tell the chef to make it again. They don't have any friends among their peers, so they don't know how to behave." The girl took the cookie in her hands and replied that they didn't need to know that at all. Noel muttered that they were told that the Duchess's younger sister was beautiful and kind, but she only looked like Rachel. The little girl thought to herself that her older sister was a very busy person, and she didn't want to waste the time she could spend with her on the twins. After which she replied that she was not against them coming to visit her only occasionally. The boy exclaimed that he was very happy he would try his best to make her happy. His brother watched his behavior from the side, and he didn't like it at all. Noel was like a dog. On the way home, our heroine asked if she liked it, and if she wanted to visit them again. Liz replied that they had agreed that the twins would come to visit her next time. Rachel exclaimed that they had really become such good friends. It seemed like she was starting to get jealous. She thought to herself that it seems deep down inside, she wants to be the most special person for her. It is now the end of summer. The rainy season in the Agnes Duchy has ended, so it is the perfect time for construction. During the day, the workers will be busy clearing the roads and sidewalks. If we exclude the imperial house and the Archduke's family, the privileged right to negotiate with the Enaus family now belongs to her. She made no effort to win the Duke's favor, only saved jail, and now he shows great interest in her. But of course, this is not the only thing that allowed the deal to be successfully concluded. If the girl had offered something absurd in return for the kindness shown, their relationship would have been a one-time thing. But it seems he was satisfied with her sincerity. Everything was going like clockwork. The Duchy of Agnes will become incredibly rich. Our heroine will certainly achieve this. Taking the baby in his arms, the knight noted that she seemed to be very tired today, since this was her first long trip. Rachel asked to be carried to her room and asked how things were going with the training of the knightly order. The guy replied that they seemed to be very angry with themselves for losing consciousness. Then everyone had become very disciplined. The girl thought to herself that what had happened had indeed been a huge shock to them. Was that the main reason why Rupert had decided to personally take charge of training the accompanying knights? After which she added that it was not their fault, it was just that the enemy had acted meanly, although she did not know whether these words would be a consolation. Since they were talking about it, she wanted to ask him if he were to fight the Archduke, who, in his opinion, would win without using magic, of course. The young man replied that he had never seen Theo wield a sword, so it was difficult to answer. But all the young man can say is that he will try to defeat him with all his might. Rupert added that the Archduke always had a murderous energy and a strong spirit. Such a knight, upon reaching a certain level, can intimidate others, and Lexville succeeded in this even as a child. But the young man does not say firmly that this will be his defeat, because he will fight for her to the last at the cost of his life. Our heroine was delighted and replied that he was truly an honest, loyal, and indomitable knight. But she thought to herself that the Archduke would never point a sword at her, but would only rush to defend her, all in order to neutralize the curse that has been destroying this perfectionist since his youth. Meanwhile, the Archduke burst into the Emperor's estate, and a court knight told him to stop for safety. The young man hissed, and if he doesn't stop, then let him think carefully before taking this step. If he is ready to stop him, then let him take out his weapon. His Highness exclaimed that it was enough, let everyone leave the room. After which he added that he understood what was bothering him, but let him calm his anger, or he would forget about their precious guests. The boy smiled and replied that it was complete nonsense, that he called the family that supported the imperial house precious. The man said that he had called him for special reasons. How much longer will the leading figures of the empire ignore each other? Let them at least exchange greetings. The young man ignored everything he said and simply began to eat the steak. Carolyn tried to talk to him, but again, there was no response from the Archduke. Therefore, the Emperor said that he needed to speak with Theo alone. Let them also come out. When everyone had left, His Highness asked if the boy had forgotten the terms of the deal. The young man asked in response whether he had ever broken them, whether the guy had attended all the receptions in honor of the victory, or whether he had presumptuously desired something more. After which, he threw the chair on which the Emperor was sitting into the air with the help of his magical abilities. When His Highness found himself on the floor, the Archduke hissed that it was probably necessary to remind him of the deal and his place. The young man does not care who is called Emperor, only the treaty matters. All that is required of him is a suitable field for battle. Let him not dare to bother his vassals with meaningless documents whose only road is to the oven. He sets conditions, and he also cancels them, only by his will. Something begins or ends. Let him make wise decisions and adhere to them, because such is his role in this place. The young man will not warn him anymore. After these words, he turned around and walked away. Harrisman immediately entered the room and asked if everything was okay, and why the Archduke had left so quickly. The Emperor hissed that everyone who had heard anything should be seized and executed on charges of treason, and that they should work for the authority of His Highness. The man replied that his order would be carried out immediately. He would give them the reddest roses. Meanwhile, Rupert reported that dry rations, drinking water equipment, absolutely everything was checked and ready. Rachel replied that, okay, the training would last about 10 days, so there would be a lot of work ahead. In days, the summer training of the Knightly Order of Agnes will begin after the division of the command staff into commanders of 10, 100, and 1,000. The order will undergo difficult training that will last more than a week. Rachel, the owner of this body, has been drinking heavily and skipping workouts all spring, so she's got some catching up to do. Rupert has been put in charge that should motivate her. The guy said that, frankly speaking, he was more worried about her than about himself, how she would feel about staying in the residence, and he would provide her with a detailed report. The girl replied that everything was fine. She wanted to see with her own eyes how her soldiers were training, so she could assess the situation faster, and that he shouldn't worry, he wouldn't be a burden. I thought to myself that I would have to make incredible efforts to avoid being ignored because of my gender and age. Although with this body, she can't go through the same rigorous training as the soldiers. Even just accompanying them to training will help change the looks they throw her way. It is also interesting why the Marquis is silent, because he challenged her. Although in his place, if she had to contact the Archduke, she would have immediately run away. She is very scared even now. After some time, a maid ran to her and shouted that her predictions had come true. People were demanding confirmation of death from a living person. The nobles were truly unbearable and tactless. She doesn't want to get as bad a reputation as Lexville. She needs to get the word out that she's alive and well. But she has so many things to do, for example, playing with her little sister, restoring the estate, developing a business, and much more. Suddenly, her attention was drawn to a letter with a sign that seemed familiar to her. Carolyn wrote that she heard about what happened at the Marcus's residence. He did some bad things, and she was so worried about her that she could not sleep. Agnes decided to skip all the formalities and get to the point. It said that there would be a reception at the Harrisman estate. They would like Rachel to attend it and make the event even more special. Our heroine noted that this was 12 days later, right after the end of training. With this visit, she will be able to tell everyone that she is alive and will not have to go anywhere else. Although she is not very happy about the prospect of seeing this girl, there is simply no more suitable place. The Harrismen are now in the center of the secular world, so there will be many nobles at their reception. There's nothing you can do about it. She can, like last time, exchange a few words and quietly leave. Holding the same letter in his hands, Geralt reported that he had heard that the soldiers of the Duchy of Agnes were undergoing summer training, and the Duchess was personally overseeing the process. The guy replied that both the knights and the soldiers there had become like a brainless herd, and that she had finally begun to put everything in order. Dante put the letter on the table and said that it was extremely advantageous for them that Agnes was strengthening her military power because it made her stronger. Let him consider this in the context of gathering information about her on their part. It looks like the girl is planning to attend a reception at the Duke's residence. Harrisman, this is an invitation to it. They say the studio has bought up all the outfits. The young man was surprised that she would really go there. Didn't they have a strained relationship? The assistant explained that this was the only place where the rumors could be put to rest once and for all. Lexville asked, doesn't that woman know the truth about the death of the previous duke? Geralt replied that he didn't think so. It had been too long since the story had started, before she had collected her thoughts. It takes a long time for a ram to rise to even the title of Viscount. The reality is that many families do not change their title for generations. However, the Marquis of Harrisman became a duke immediately after the current emperor's accession to the throne. Such was the reward for his cleaning up Giorgio's dirty deeds. Perhaps his greatest merit is the death of Duke Agnes, who investigated the death of the late emperor. The assistant reported that this letter came from the emperor. It spoke of a new military campaign, but the guy did not know whether there was a need for it now. Theo thought to himself that it seemed to have dawned on him that he needed to be on the battlefield, even though there was no need for it now because of Rachel, and then replied that he would attend the Harrisman event. Geralt laughed and replied that he was going to make all the high society tremble. How about going there as a partner of Duchess Agnes? They still haven't been able to completely remove the curse from him. If the girl starts an affair with someone, they might have problems. Rachel may say that her lover does not like that she spends time with another man. Is it possible to do cleansing at a distance? Or her partner will shout that the Duchess is cheating on him, and she will try to explain that it is just a misunderstanding. Or she will simply say that they are going on a date, so she doesn't have time for it now. Theo thought that even just watching her would be much more convenient if she was nearby. His curse is a secret, so he can't tell anyone why he is attached to this woman. Still, Harrisman has a direct connection to the death of her parents. For some reason, he doesn't want to send her alone to such a place. I wonder if it is possible to cut off the possibility of a relationship without any suspicion, after which the young man added that he needed to send a letter to Duchess Agnes. Meanwhile, our heroine was thinking that she seemed to have bought too much. But dressing her favorite character beautifully is the primary responsibility of a fan, after which she muttered that no matter what she also needed autumn clothes. The maid was shocked by so many boxes. Did she really need autumn clothes for the rest of her life? Rachel then suggested that they should hire an artist to capture Liz's daily life. That would be great, after all it was her fault that she couldn't draw her birth. The maid was so shocked that she didn't even know what to answer. Suddenly, a little girl ran up to her. The girl realized that she was very tired and already wanted to sleep. Bella immediately said that she would take care of the little lady, but Agnes objected that it was not necessary, everything was fine. The maid could go, since today she would put her little sister to bed herself. Our heroine thought to herself that the maid had changed a lot since the moment Liz suffered, which apparently shocked her specifically. In order to raise this little one in complete safety, both she and Bella will gather all their determination into a fist. The little one asked if it means that from tomorrow they will not be able to see each other again. The girl replied that yes, but as soon as 10 nights had passed, she would return back. The little sister muttered that she wanted to be with her every day, but she was too busy. Rachel replied that she was working hard to protect someone, and she should know who it was without words. Rachel and Liz's father was cold, the epitome of aristocratic nobility. How could the little one be so cute? It was simply impossible to believe. Falling asleep, the girl suddenly said that she also really wanted to protect her older sister. Agnes thought to herself that Liz was her reliable stronghold. She was the last boss in the novel, beloved saint. If the little one had firmly decided to kill someone, it would have been the emperor, and nothing would have remained of the saint. But at the end of her journey, the girl decided to commit suicide instead of killing. Because the main character could neither be maimed nor killed, she considered this the best decision of the author. But when she thinks about it now, she suddenly has the thought that perhaps somewhere deep inside, Liz hid a good heart. For although she possessed exceptional powers as Archduke Lexville, she did not abuse her abilities and did not deal with those who were hostile to her. The girl brought this good-natured little girl, justifying herself by saying that she had to protect her. But is she doing the right thing by making her feel lonely? In her place, her little sister would probably have dealt with such concerns in no time. After some time, our heroine thought that the weather outside was just perfect for training. People like Count Wickens should never be ignored. Even though he is currently huddled in a corner, watching Theo's mood swings, she is sure that he is trying his best to find a loophole to harm her. Marquis Wilbur started the dispute only because she looked like easy prey, but Count Wickens clearly harbored a deep grudge. If he suddenly unites with the Marquis of Cavendish to strike at her duchy, will she be able to stop them? She has a person she wants to protect, and she must move forward with this thought. It is necessary to become stronger with all your might. So from this moment on, they begin training. Meanwhile, the Count asked his daughter how her son-in-law was feeling. The girl replied that he was still grief-stricken over the loss of his hand, and when she thought about that day, she felt uneasy again. No one helped them, because rumors spread that the husband had fallen out of favor with the Archduke, and everyone cut off ties with them. But nevertheless, in the residence of the Marquis of Wilbur, Lexville attacked the Duchess. Agnes perhaps only ashes remained from that woman too, but the man replied that no, unfortunately, they on the contrary, united. Not a hair was harmed from her head, and he was also informed that she and her knightly order had gone off to summer trainings, because they cannot touch the Duchess. The Earl tried to take advantage of Miss Harrisman, but they say that she is gentle and kind, like the flower of society. Sadly, they will have to act on their own, although the final answer is not yet clear. The woman muttered that since training is very dangerous, maybe something could happen to her. The father was indignant that she was saying such things. What could she do when she was surrounded by thousands of soldiers? Angela screamed that, right now, nothing but the training is carried out several times. She is just sure that there must be a gap. The man replied that, okay, he would think about it and try to do something. Although our heroine spoke confidently, the training was a difficult test for the body, which had no idea what physical labor was. Rachel had never even been on a hike. Her whole body was just aching from pain. It was only the fourth day of summer training, but still, she felt that she and the knights had become closer. Rupert reported that they pitched a tent for her because they were worried she was overtired. The girl replied that there was no need to worry about her, but rather that they should take care of those who were injured. The winner of the hand-to-hand combat on the last day of summer training will receive a prize and a vacation. If someone cannot participate, he will be extremely upset. The young man replied that he was listening. Then let him accept this message. The headmaid urgently asked to convey it to her. This letter is from His Highness, the Archduke of Lexville. Rachel wondered if he really needed her power again if its period of action was so short. The guy wrote that he was sure she was alive and well, so he would skip the banal greeting and would say, in essence, let her be his partner at the Harrisman reception. The young man did not understand what kind of strange reaction she had. She did not respond to any questions, after which he ordered the knights to return to their positions and await further instructions, while to himself he thought that something serious was really written there. Our heroine was surprised by this insolence, which was felt even through the letter. How can he have such an even and beautiful handwriting with such a disgusting character? If he had a clumsy handwriting to match his vile character, she would have made fun of him properly. His behavior has been strange lately. Usually Lexville only appeared at victory receptions, but recently he has been constantly appearing here and there. Then it dawned on her that if he was offering to go together, then why didn't he write anything about the dress code? Why does the young man act as if he has never come to a reception with a couple, although perhaps he has never really been with a partner at an event given his character? This is a completely logical assumption. If she appears with the Archduke, will Carolyn consider herself a failure? It is better not to get involved with people who own their surroundings, as if they were some kind of thing. If Rachel goes to a reception with the Archduke, all the troubles of the world will fall on her head with percent probability. But she can't refuse either knowing him. The guy will of course wear a black suit. It turns out that she won't be able to wear the outfits she bought. So days passed. The end of summer, training came after a short rest. She would have to go straight to the reception. The maid asked if she was okay. Lying face down, the Duchess replied that yes, he should just ignore it. She thought to herself that it was okay if it was muscle pain, but because she was also sorting out paperwork between workouts, she had a terrible headache. After which she asked Anne to help her get ready, because Harrisman requires special care in preparation. Meanwhile, the butler told the Archduke that the suit fit perfectly. His eyes were not mistaken. The young man asked if it looked too flashy. The man replied that no. This outfit emphasized his composure, although of course it was impossible to hide His Highness's magnificent appearance behind some piece of fabric. Theo interrupted him and said that that's enough. This party is a continuation of work. He is going to protect that woman, so there is no need to make a mountain out of a molehill. The butler asked whether his master had discussed the dress code with Duchess Agnes. The young man didn't understand what he was even talking about. What dress code? The assistant explained that couples usually choose clothes that are the same style and color as a sign that they are companions. When he added that he had prepared suits of different colors for him, so when he met Rachel, he should just change into the appropriate one. The guy turned around and said that he was leaving. Meanwhile, our heroine was late because of the long preparations, so she was nervous. A picture popped into her head of the guy getting angry and asking how she dared to make him wait. Apparently she couldn't wait to die. The maid reported that they had already arrived. If the Duchess was not feeling well, she should return to the residence. She would remain in the carriage and inform of her departure. The girl replied that no, she had to collect her thoughts and hold out at this event. She thought to herself that people with high status usually arrive later, but she made such a man wait. Suddenly, a guy approached her and said that he was Count Arthur Jorgent, and that she should not be embarrassed to call him Sir Arthur. When our heroine asked where the Archduke was, the young man replied that he was waiting for her. When they met, the young man immediately said that she was late. The girl asked for forgiveness, and replied that she was not feeling well. So let him forgive her. Lexville thought to himself that indeed her face was clearly paler than usual, and her gaze was also somehow absent-minded. Now she is heading to the lair of her parents' killers. He thought about it, but the Duchess is too defenseless. He is uneasy about leaving her out of sight. While he was thinking about how he couldn't be with her all the time, the girl tripped and almost fell. Rachel asked for forgiveness, but she thought to herself that her head was spinning. Her legs were getting tangled. He probably thought she was pathetic. The Archduke unexpectedly said that by the way she managed to comply with the dress code. Meanwhile, everyone admired Carolyn, saying that she simply dazzled with her beauty. How can a person shine so much? There is no one here more dazzling than Miss. She has the most impeccable dress. Very nice colors and details. From which studio did she order it? Harrisman replied that she uses several tailors, so she does not remember where exactly it was sewn. She will clarify the information later and share it with them. She thought to herself that the best could only belong to one, and therefore, of course, she was not going to tell them anything. Mr. Mason said that they had not seen the lady for a long time, and that she had lost a lot of weight since their last meeting. The girl pretended to be glad to see him, but to herself, she thought that this was the second son of the Marquis of Vilbert. She invited him to find out what had happened that day. After which she replied that she hadn't even been in the mood to eat lately, but in fact, it wouldn't be a lie to say that she was upset, and the look of this individual made her feel even worse. The main reason for her upset was probably her failed attempt to get along with the Archduke with the Emperor. She knew that His Majesty treated Lexville with great caution, but the truth that was revealed to her that day was horrifying. It turned out that the Emperor was groveling before him. How wonderful it would be to win the heart of such a man, with whom even the ruler was unable to cope. While the girl was thinking about what a wonderful wild beast he was, it was announced that Archduke Lexville and Duchess Agnes had arrived. Our heroine thought to herself that she was already puzzled by the fact that he offered his candidacy, but she never expected that the guy would deign to accompany her. Harrisman was in complete shock and couldn't believe her eyes. Relationships between aristocrats of the opposite sex cannot be ordinary, although this is now an outdated way of thinking. But since it was difficult for women to advance in politics, they wanted to marry someone who would maintain or enhance their status. And men wanted to see for their wife either a support of the family or a beautiful doll. However, as has already been said, this way of thinking is outdated. Anyone can wish to see a beautiful doll next to them. Anyone can use someone else's family as a support. The source of human desires is greed. Everyone wants to achieve something and possess it completely. Rachel thought to herself that Carolyn was trying to kill a man with her look, and she was still called the flower of society, and yet she was so openly demonstrating her malice. Although her partner's character is not sugar, such handsome men are not found on the road. After which she said that if he was going to accompany her, he couldn't try. She could barely keep up with him. People might think that she was the one begging him to become a partner. The young man noted that she seemed to be feeling unwell, so they would return early. He did not intend to linger here. The girl replied that she was only going to show that she was alive and well, and leave, but he probably had some business to attend to since he came. After thinking for a moment, the young man replied that she didn't need to know that. Agnes thought to herself that okay, she has known his character for a long time, so no one approaches him. This is great because she has absolutely no energy for arguments. She hopes that no one is going to start them. But suddenly, Carolyn appeared, who thanked them for responding to her invitation. She could not even imagine that she would see them both at her modest reception. Rachel was surprised, as the person next to her completely ignored the organizer. She wanted to apologize to Harrisman for his behavior. Why even come with such an attitude? Unexpectedly, the girl added that she would like to dance the first dance with His Highness. Traditionally, unmarried girls in the host family dance the first dance with the highest-ranking person present. Our heroine declared that he could go dance, but she needed to greet someone, after which she headed towards the second son of the Marquis of Vilbert. The young man said that they were far from being in a relationship where they could greet each other joyfully. He had heard snatches of information from his father about that day. He is very sorry that this happened. Unfortunately, he was not feeling well at the time, so I would like to apologize on behalf of my father. The girl was angry to herself that it was enough to talk nonsense about feeling unwell. He was just having fun with the courtesans, after which she asked when their side intended to arrange a duel the Archduke was waiting. The guy replied that the decision was up to the father, and that the more important question was what kind of relationship she had with Lexville. Rachel was indignant that she didn't have to tell him. It seemed he couldn't answer the question she was interested in, so let him get out of sight. The young man replied that he would be very sorry if the conversation ended in this way. Agnes said that she had no desire to talk to him, since he was disregarding the Duchess's order. She would have to leave herself. But she thought to herself that they hadn't even started dancing yet. What was he even doing? She doesn't want to stay in the same room with the overly curious, impudent fellow. If she stays there, will probably be more questions, since no one is able to address such questions to Theo himself. Nothing surprising, there is simply no such fearless person in the world. It was cold outside, but she wanted to catch her breath. Suddenly, she felt that her body was gradually becoming heavier. It was beyond her strength. Hearing that someone was coming, the girl exclaimed that it was impolite to enter the occupied terrace. Who dared? It was the Marquise's son, who said that if she was upset about His Highness and Miss Caroline, he could console her. Our heroine was taken aback by such impudence and said that she was not in the mood to talk to him. Let him leave. The young man hissed that arrogance was good, but if she was too prickly, she would be hated, so she should not be stubborn. Harrisman suddenly ran onto the balcony, frozen by the sight before her, after which she grinned slyly and told them to continue. The girl would not distract them. The maiden turned to the Archduke and said that Duchess Agnes was not around, so perhaps he would announce the beginning of the banquet with her. The guy replied that he thought her name was Caroline, and he couldn't figure out why she kept bothering him. Although he pretended to know nothing, the thick-headed emperor summoned him and forced him to sit at the same table with them, even forced him to start a useless conversation. If this was a dinner party where the empire's leading figures were trying to network, what was that girl doing there? Harrisman's daughter has been hanging around him for a long time. Her intentions are clear, so he responded that she should stop this empty talk. Caroline thought to herself that he continued to talk to Agnes and to accompany her. Let him at least look at her. There was never a man in her life who was indifferent to her. There was always someone looking at her flirtatiously, someone casting lustful glances. In the dance, their bodies touch the luxurious curves of the female body, and tender flesh will definitely excite the man. So brilliant she is, and so perfect he is. They are two halves destined for each other. After which she asked if she had made any mistake in relation to His Highness. The young man replied that it was not without this, whether he should point out each of them. She takes the partner away from the girl, but asks permission from him, not from her, so that he can quietly return to his admirers. Meanwhile, the Marquise's son said that if she left now, strange rumors would spread, and it looked like she would have to stay with him a little longer. So what do grown men and women usually do on a closed terrace? Our heroine ordered him to remove his hands and tried to step back. Meanwhile, Caroline was standing at the door with the girls who were asking if something had happened on the terrace. Harrison replied that no, but she thought they had better go there and talk. Suddenly, the Archduke materialized near them, and the girl began to get nervous that if he entered now, everything would look completely different from what she wanted. Before them appeared a picture of a young man pestering our heroine, who looked unwell. The boy thought to himself that this was the son of the Marquis of Vilbert. Dante only occasionally mentioned him, and then through gritted teeth. Every time he sees this woman on the horizon, he loses his mind and starts doing nasty things. The guy immediately began to try to justify himself by saying that the Archduke had completely misunderstood everything, and that it simply seemed to him that the Duchess was cold. Lexville said that he should tell his father that even if they gave up their dirty games, the duel would still take place. Everyone immediately began to discuss that it seemed that the Marquis's second son had done something taking advantage of the Duchess's poor health. His offspring is intolerable. It seems that Theo saved Agnes. Did Miss Caroline see it? Perhaps she considered it a political dispute. Our heroine tried to pretend that everything was okay with her, so she gathered her will into a fist and moved forward. But in the end, everything got mixed up. She was also worried about one question. Why was this young man next to her so angry? The girl looked at him and said that she had already told him, but let him go. Please, more slowly. She was feeling very bad right now. Suddenly, the Archduke stopped abruptly and placed his hand on hers. Rachel instantly felt better and looked at him with an uncomprehending look. The young man said that she shouldn't look at him like that it was annoying that his partner was unable to behave with dignity, after which he added that he would take her home. Sometime later, sitting in the carriage, our heroine asked where they were now. The young man replied that they were almost there, so he should sit quietly. Agnes thought to herself that this was the first time she had found herself in his debt. She felt like she was going to die from embarrassment, but after sleeping, she felt even better. And in general, what did she just do? She just sat down in the carriage and immediately fell asleep as if she had been hit on the head with something. The expression on the young man's face was very strange. Was she sure she hadn't done anything wrong? After which she decided that she needed to say something and asked if he needed her magic today. But Lexville replied that when such a need arose, he would take her hand himself. The girl thought to herself that she didn't need to know his reasons. But wasn't it a lower price than starving her own people to death? He doesn't want to talk about the curse, even when the Archduke discovered her abilities, which she didn't even know she had. He said that she didn't need to know the reason why Rachel should hold his hand. It is obvious that Lexville has a deep connection with magical awakening, so it is no wonder that everything is kept in the strictest secrecy. After all, magicians are priceless and very rare. Even in the imperial family, there are only magicians, and even all of them are as far from the Archduke as the moon. At best, they have telekinesis, which allows them to move light objects. Maybe they can also create a weak breeze, and the young man is able to burn hundreds, if not thousands of people with a flick. It is about the secret that allows him to artificially inherit this great power. She has seen only a fraction of his suffering, and she has no desire to master such power. But the foolish people in power will certainly try to find out his secret, even if it costs them a fortune, and even if the price is a curse. Therefore, she understands him, but he is too secretive. If she has to constantly adjust to his mood, she will not be able to follow him, even if he does not tell her everything, but at least something. After which she said that she would like to conduct business on equal terms. Shouldn't she know when her strength is needed? The guy replied that he had said that he was cursed, that he needed to see such an amount of blood that she could not even imagine because his magic required blood. That he always goes to the battlefield at the Emperor's command is a kind of bargain. The girl thought to herself that he was speaking as if he were a being who had a will, that is, there was no talk of loyalty to the Emperor. When asked what if she suddenly couldn't see blood, the young man replied that he had no choice but to see it anyway, something similar to what she had seen at the Wilbur residence. But when our heroine touches it, this curse rejoices and subsides. Rachel muttered that it turned out that her power was necessary when he needed blood, as it was with the Marquise. The girl asked if she could touch him, but she thought to herself that, thanks to her, the curse was rejoicing and subsiding. It feels like the curse he speaks of is the essence of magic. That's what gave him unimaginable power, but in return put him in chains. Arthur exclaimed that at last he had arrived, and some came out to meet his lordship as soon as he received the message. Then the young man turned his attention to Rachel and asked what the two of them were doing there. Our heroine thought to herself that she must have gone crazy. What was she even doing? Liz suddenly appeared, exclaiming that she so wanted to see her big sister. Agnes turned to the Archduke and said that this was her younger sister today. The situation was not the most favorable, but next time she would formally introduce them. For some reason, the young man had a very strange expression on his face, and he replied that they were completely different from each other. On the way to the estate, the guy thought that she had simply left. But what was this strange feeling of emptiness? Was it really melancholy? Did such emotions suit him? Her waist is so thin that it seems like it will break if you press a little harder. Red cheeks are like ripe fruits that burst at the slightest touch. A frail woman, who could hardly walk, leaning on his arm. The Marquis's second son behaved disgustingly towards her. Perhaps it is worth wiping him out into dust. Then the young man decided that no, it would be better to get rid of the entire empire in principle. In general, the Duchess is raising a very interesting creature, which she calls her little sister. The little girl said that she was afraid of him, and the girl explained that she was very shy, so it would be better to arrange a meeting for them next time. From the assistant's report, he knows that she is an illegitimate child. She is only years old at this age. Children are still stupid and naive. But she clings to her older sister perfectly, understanding the situation and her position. Taking the Duchess by the hand, she turned around with a smile on her lips, apparently daring to boast to him of her victory. At the estate, he was met by the butler, who immediately asked if His Highness had had a good time. The young man silently handed him the scarf, and the man wondered where the cloak had gone. When asked if everything was calm, the man replied that even more vile rats had appeared, and that this must be the work of someone who doubted the actions of the Archduke. Theo thought to himself that it must be the Emperor. Despite everything, he continues to ignore his warnings. He is interested in his intentions, and of course wants to find out the secret of the Archduke's family. Information about the curse was always passed on orally from parent to receiver. It is necessary to contain pain, sadness, and all emotions. Therefore, even those close to him do not know the details about the Lexville curse. They only know that if he does not see blood regularly, he will be burned after experiencing unimaginable pain. Dante ran into the office and said that His Highness must be tired after the journey, but he had received an urgent message. The guy noted that hurrying is not usually about him. The assistant replied that it was all because of the case that had arisen lately. The actions of Count Wickens looked extremely suspicious. He was informed that after visiting the residence of the Marquis of Cavendish, he came into contact with the Guild of Assassins. It must be in the circumstances that his target is the Duchess Agnes. When asked when the assassination attempt was planned, the guy replied that it seemed the girl intended to take part in the second summer training. Most likely that's when they would attack. The killers would simply mix with the knights. Then it occurred to him that His Highness Sir Arthur and their knights also needed field training. How about he proposed to the Duchess to hold a joint training session? Isn't their goal to protect her? If they organize training together, they will be able to naturally be near her. The young man replied that he approved. It was a very good idea. He would write the letter personally. Let them wait. In it, he said that he heard that she had a second summer training planned. He wanted to evaluate the abilities of her knightly order. So maybe they should have a joint training. After reading this message, our heroine thought that it was quite good. The Knights of Lexville are the elite of the elite. They were the backbone of the mighty Castor Empire, battle-hardened warriors who were always at the forefront with the Archduke. Therefore, even simple training would bring great benefits to her knights. She imagined the picture of Rupert declaring that he had become a master of the sword faster than in the original. Why did he even decide to send her such a wonderful proposal, to be honest? A cold has overcome her, and now she is thinking of skipping the second training. The memories from the reception are also interrupted in places, perhaps because of the heat rumors may spread among the nobility about her weak character. The letter also said that she should prepare food for his knights, and as for expenses, let her plan them herself, and then simply write down the amount. The girl was outraged by this, so she thought about whether she should encroach on his wealth. It was necessary to prepare very good provisions for the upcoming training. Although no, he writes as if he had already decided everything, then why ask her opinion at all? What kind of person is this? Marcus suddenly burst into the office. The man apologized for his tactlessness, but he had a very urgent message. Count Wickens had contacted the Assassin's Guild, and his target was most likely her. He ordered to strengthen security, but it was too dangerous for her to observe the upcoming training. The girl replied that she would be fine, and told her to read what was written there. The assistant immediately calmed down a little, and replied that if she were an archduke, then no problems would arise. But there is more bad news. It seems that absurd rumors about the lady are spreading in the prisons. The woman named Anzu, who was arrested earlier, and the maid who was the main culprit in the incident with her sister, are involved in this. She screamed so loudly that there was not a single prisoner who was not aware of what had happened, and the content of her tirade was... But he didn't have time to finish speaking, because the little girl looked into the office and called out to her sister. Our heroine thought to herself that she hoped she had not heard anything, as it might hurt her. The little girl said that she came to hug her tightly. Rachel immediately told the assistant that they would continue this conversation later and went to hug the baby. Sometime later, the day of departure for the second summer training came. The girl looked at the boxes and thought that here it was the wealth of the Archduchy. She had stocked up quite a bit. It was hard to even imagine how many expensive products were there. Of course, my conscience tormented me at first, but then it quickly swept everything out of the warehouse. She wrote that she doesn't understand what the guy means when he says he wants an answer, when it's already decided, but she got his check and will use it for its intended purpose. When a young man receives a huge bill, let him not be angry with her, because he himself gave her the check. The young man replied that she should do as she wished, This was the shortest answer she had ever received. So what? She has no idea what he was thinking when he gave her a blank check, knowing full well that the duchy was in financial trouble, and since he told her to do it, she would drink some of his blood. The necessary things were prepared. The knights who respected her even more were also ready. And the weather was amazing. It was a wonderful time to spend time with Liz. Meanwhile, Theo told Arthur that it was time for him to move out, and Dante said that he should leave the decision on the working issues to him. The little girl told the maid that she wanted to go to the prison. There was a man there whom she definitely wanted to see. The girl replied that prison was not the place she should go if the Duchess found out she would be very angry. When the little one objected that it was possible to go there secretly, the maid replied that nothing in Agnes's house could escape the Duchess's eye. The girl replied that she would take care of everything herself, she just needed to take her there. The assistant tried to object, that it was impossible, prison was too dangerous. There was nothing for the little mistress to do there. Liz looked at her and said that didn't she say that this was her wish, she should just submit to her will? The girl likes that she can breathe freely and not hide her feelings from Bella. But she is too kind and naive for this. The baby loves her even more. But if she continues to say that Liz should not do something, then perhaps love will turn to irritation. However, it was a gift from her older sister, so she doesn't plan on throwing it away, even if it breaks. After which she added that she really likes Bella, so let him take her to prison as soon as possible. Meanwhile, the Knights of Lexville noted that this is simply an amazing place. The sand buckets do not blow, and the sun is very warm, as if it were another world. Arthur replied that of course he should just keep his sinister energy to himself. He must have put on his mercenary uniform specifically to scare the residents of the Agnes Duchy. The guide will arrive soon, and let everyone remember that they are here to protect the Duchess. This training will be a real battle they must put in all their efforts, because they will have to demonstrate what the face of the Archduchy of Lexville is. Almost immediately, Rupert appeared, who said that, welcome. He is the commander of the Knights of Agnes. He was given the order to escort them to the training ground. The young man told Arthur to check the rear detachment and join them. The boy thought to himself that he had heard that these people were the closest to death. They were the Knights of the Archduchy of Lexville. Of course, they emanate a special power. He feels the very energy that manifests itself only on the battlefield where rivers of blood flow. Training with them under the guidance of Her Grace the Duchess, they must not only memorize their fighting techniques, but also show the strength of the Agnes family. This is an opportunity to let everyone know that they are like a well-forged sword. When Theo was greeted by a joyful Rachel and informed that he had arrived early, the boy wondered to himself if the woman was aware that Count Wickens was targeting her. When the young man asked where she would live, the girl pointed to a luxurious tent that was different from all the others. The young man was surprised that she was really trying to openly tell the murderers that she was there. Meanwhile, the little girl walked along the corridors of the dungeon and hummed a song. The woman exclaimed that this voice was familiar to her. Could it really be Liz? How did the little one know where she was? When the little girl said that she heard that there were strange rumors about her, Anzu screamed, I mean strange, she just told the truth. The little girl is cursed and also possessed. Does the girl really think that the Duchess will consider her a sister when she learns of her true nature? Bella was indignant. How dare she say such a thing to the lady, as expected she needs to leave quickly. Suddenly, water began to appear around the girl, and she did not understand what was happening. The little girl forgot about it for a very long time. She is a cursed and possessed child. When a girl dances, the water dances too. When she cries, the heavens weep with her. The woman would scream every time at such moments that she was a monster and lock her in the basement. And Liz, in this damp and cold basement, buried her soul and abilities. But thanks to her, she remembered everything from start to finish. The little one hissed that she was a stupid auntie. Didn't she even have a fleeting thought that she could kill her? There was only one reason why the auntie was still safe and sound. If she died, she would have nowhere to go. But now she has a home. After these words, the water level in the cell where the offenders were located began to rise, and it was not clear where it came from. The little girl added that the woman has absolutely no right to say that her older sister might disown her. Such statements upset her very much and spoiled her entire mood. Lying in bed, the girl thought that the road to a happy life with Liz was too long and difficult once it was all over. she would just play with her and do nothing else. She had been walking with the knights all along, and now her whole body ached. She wouldn't do it anymore, and the feeling of being followed was much worse than Rachel thought. Those who seek to kill her will most likely appear on the last day of training when everyone is relaxed, that is, today. In fact, she had no particular desire to live, so she accepted the new life in the new world as if nothing had happened. She didn't care at all about Pak Yan's life, which ended with a sparkling flash and a loud noise. Now everything was different. She wants to continue living with her younger sister. Here our heroine feels real, and this instills fear and horror. Suddenly, the voice of the Archduke was heard, and Agnes wondered what had brought him here at such a late hour, after which she said that he could come in. The guy said that he would settle in the neighboring tent. He doesn't know if she's aware, but an assassination attempt is being prepared on her. Inside the luxurious tent, the girl is an easy target for killers. Rachel replied that she knew why she would put up a fancy tent in the middle of the training grounds if they were looking for her everywhere other people could get hurt. The young man replied that her life was much more valuable than hundreds, even thousands of other people's lives. Was this really news to her? Our heroine replied that he would protect her. Wasn't that why he came here? The young man stated that she knew everything perfectly well. This was a very self-confident step. Rachel replied that her life was at stake, so she couldn't take any risks, but she felt relieved to be with him. Perhaps because the strongest man in the world came to protect her. Her eyes suddenly began to stick together, after which she asked if he would return to himself. The Archduke replied that if he wanted to sleep, then let him lie down, nothing would happen. The young man thought to himself that she was either too naive or too smart under his protection. No one would harm her. But the most dangerous man in the world is Archduke Lexville doesn't. She know that, so why does she believe and rely on him? Her hair is so snow-white as if he shouldn't touch it, because it destroys everything in its path. Meanwhile, the little girl thought to herself that she wanted to get rid of them, but if someone died in prison, it would certainly reach her sister's ears. So the little one decided to just leave the women with a light warning. Then she turned to Bella, called her man, and said that she hoped that she would not tell the Duchess what had happened. The maid replied that yes, she was indeed very afraid, but she was overcome not only by fear, but also by awe. The girl had an overwhelming power that no one had ever heard of, and that could only be obeyed. It was clearly magic. The magician, whom she considered a character from a fairy tale, turned a stream of water into a snake. With one movement of his hand, took just one look, and the chamber was flooded with the ocean. Only 2 voices were heard suffering from being swallowed up by the sea. When asked if the girl was aiming for a ducal title, Liz replied, "What is she even talking about? This is her older sister's place. Rachel works hard every day to protect her. She is not going to deprive her of the joy and merits due to her. She will always be a weak, kind, and defenseless child." After some time, the young man told the Duchess to go outside. Rupert reported that, as requested, several of the killers were taken alive. But what do they plan to do with them now? Arthur asked how this should be understood. They should be executed without trial or investigation, according to the instructions of the Archduke. But first, their tongues should be loosened. The girl noted that the prisoners had a cloth in their mouths, which they used to plug it so that the person could not scream. Plus, there was a hidden concern, because the guys told her not to go with them, which meant they were going to torture the mercenaries. Neither Rachel, who grew up as a flower in a greenhouse, nor Pak Ye-an, who lived in their time, had ever observed such a thing. But our heroine said that they attempted on her life, so she must find out the truth. The young man immediately warned her that this sight would not be pleasant. A place where the truth is extracted from people through pain, it will not leave anyone indifferent, but she does not want to sit idly by while the Archduke does her job. But the darkness she entered was full of cruelty, cutting into the flesh, with laughter flying from her lips, thick slimy warmth spreading across the floor. All this is accompanied by terrifying screams that simply pierce the soul through and through. But the most terrible thing was the human flesh being torn apart before her eyes, and he seemed indifferent. Although he was always like this, the guy himself said that, because of the curse, he must constantly kill witness so many deaths and suffering, he lost a lot. Most of all, people fear death, having lost everything, he himself became death. Of course it fears him. But on the edge of this darkness, a word thundered. Our heroine knows it very well, and it is sympathy. When she woke up the next day, the maid said that the Archduke had asked to call him when she got up, but the maid would tell him that the mistress wanted to rest a little longer. But the Duchess replied that it was not necessary, since she was already getting up anyway. Theo immediately appeared in the room and reported that while she was resting, they had put in order the information collected by the commander of her night squad. When Agnes muttered that she had really slept for so long, the boy thought to himself that it was no wonder her flower had not blossomed for that. But still the blood of a lion flows in this woman. She cannot be raised like a kitten. The young man handed her the documents. The girl noted that this was a contract for murder with the signature and seal of Count Wickens. Should such documents be saved, they must be burned immediately after payment. The Archduke replied that it was simply people living in the shadows who were extremely suspicious. When asked what she was going to do, the girl replied that since the Count was aiming at her, he should be prepared to take a retaliatory blow, or he considered her some kind of simpleton. For some reason, everyone thinks that way, so she must show these individuals that if they touch the Agnes family, they will face a bitter end. Meanwhile, the Count was informed that the Knightly Order of Lexville had conducted a joint training session with the Knights of Agnes. The man said that just don't say that Theo was present at the scene of the planned murder. Those mercenaries were supposed to burn all the documents about the order. There shouldn't be a hint of his connection with them. The assistant handed Wickens another letter, which was sent by the Duchess. It was said that this act upset her as a representative of high-ranking nobility. She cannot downplay the scale of what happened, so Agnes declares a feudal war on the county of Wickens. The key word here was war, and it required the emperor's permission. It is clear that if the feudal war drags on, the power of the nobles will weaken, so the imperial family treats this favorably. But Agnes's victory will be a serious problem, because the winner can demand astronomical compensation from the loser. He cannot watch the girl's strength increase. Duke Agnes, a high-ranking aristocrat, who led the investigation into the death of the former emperor. He dared to go after the current ruler and dig up information, and Giorgio tried to kill his daughter with poison, but he has no idea how she survived. The girl is by no means a saint, because this phenomenon did not happen. The Wizards of Light disappeared along with the Wizards of Darkness back at the time of the founding of the nation. This Archduke, who does not look like a human being at all, is too obsessed with Duchess Agnes. Instead of going to the battlefield, he wanders around her. There was definitely a reason for his obsession with fighting. If it weren't for his magic, he would have crushed that arrogant guy. Did a fire mage really have that much power to begin with? I'm sure he did something else to get it. Then I thought that maybe she was the key to Lexville's suffering. In that case, he must certainly see how his bold expression will be distorted by mental pain. Wickens follows the power of the era should he close his eyes to the place that can become his current strength. Meanwhile, our heroine was informed that the Count had deployed a large number of spies and had managed to capture people. He was very curious whether the Archduke would join the war. The girl replied that it was nothing surprising. Lexville's participation was an immediate loss for Wickens, but her fight was her fight. They had spoiled her mood a little, so let her order everyone to be kicked out. Marcus replied that he was listening. There was also the question of hiring additional warriors, and the Count was postponing the discussion of the amount of compensation. Our heroine replied that she would resolve the issue with the mercenaries at any cost. A maid appeared in the room and announced that everything was ready for the mistress's departure. Since the Duchy of Agnes was preparing for war, it was becoming dangerous, so she asked that her little sister be under the guardianship of the Archduke for a while. The little girl really didn't want to leave, and said that no matter how busy she was, the girl could wait. But the baby doesn't know about the feudal war. It's very hard for a child, so she asked Lexville to keep everything a secret. Rachel replied that she also did not want to send her to the Archduchy. She constantly wanted to see her face, but there was no other choice. They'll be coming for my little sister soon. Is she really going to be capricious in front of strangers? The little girl started crying that she didn't want to leave, that her older sister shouldn't abandon her, that she had done something wrong. Maybe she was wrong in something. There was no need to hate her. The Duchess immediately ran up to Liz and hugged her tightly, saying that why should she leave her? It wouldn't happen even if the heavens fell. Until she spreads her wings, saying that she doesn't need Rachel. She will do everything for her, even if it means completely destroying someone. The girl knows that the little one has been patiently waiting for Agnes to be free, But could she wait a little longer? Now she needs to deal with one very important matter. The girl will focus on him to finish everything quickly and have fun with her. But she is afraid that the baby will get even more bored. So she decided to send her on a picnic to one amazing place. Our heroine talks about a huge castle, like an imperial palace, which is located in the capital, and it is time for a princess to live in it. The strongest and most courageous young man in the world lives there. The sister cannot go there, but hopes that upon her return, the little girl will tell her what wonders she saw there. Having calmed down a little, the little girl replied that it was fine, she loved her very much. Rachel replied that she loved her too, and when all the work was finished, she would definitely come for her. On the way, the little girl repeated the same words over and over again, that her sister didn't abandon Liz. She has no idea that the girl is a bad child, because of whom everyone's mood is spoiled, so she has no reason to abandon her. But why is she trying to send her so far away? There are many other ways to leave her. It's all too strange. After which, she said that maybe they hid something from her. Bella had just really spoiled her mood. Who is she for the girl anyway? When the maid dejectedly replied that she was her personal servant, the little girl asked why she was hiding something from her then. The assistant replied that this was an order about her ladyship, to which the little one said that it was good that she dutifully obeyed her sister, but she should not hide anything that concerned hers. Having collected her thoughts, the maid replied that the Duchy of Agnes was going to start a war. Liz didn't understand why, because this event is full of ominous events, misfortune, and death, which means the older sister is in danger. The little one really wants to protect her sister, who knows maybe she is crying from fear now, so she told Arthur that she feels bad. She doesn't have the strength of the little girl, she won't be able to protect herself, after which she asked the guy for forgiveness, but he replied that there was no need to apologize. It was time for them all to rest. The girl needed to go back to help her, so she replied that she wasn't apologizing for that. Dirty water is heavier. This makes things difficult. It needs to be lighter, so that Liz can create a cold, sharp blade. After which, an energy flow flew past the young man's face and scratched his cheek. The little girl muttered that thanks to this power, she would be the most dangerous of all, so the uncles would come to an end. The little one will become the elder sister's sword, and the boys will freeze like the depths of the sea. This is the world of the novel, The Beloved Saint. And of course, the main character is a blonde saint. This is a story about the victory of men over the villain Liz Agnes. There are several main male characters. The main character is the crown prince of the Castor Empire. Edvic Liz loved him. A minor character is one of the twins of the Nas ducal family Noel, the holy knight who destroyed the entire army of the Duchy of Agnes and announced the death of Liz Rupert Archer. The last of them asked why she had been so kind to him all this time, since he was an insignificant mercenary. There was no need to waste kindness on him. The girl replied that there is not a single insignificant life in the world. For her, he is also a precious being created by God's love. The mercenary Caesar thought she was beautiful, a woman like a white wildflower. He wanted to devote himself entirely to her. This devoted servant of the saint, using the power of the king of mercenaries. He gathered fighters under his command to put pressure on the Agnes family and made a major contribution to the destruction of their army. This is the boy who is standing right in front of her now. He was screaming that he would not allow anyone to lay a finger on his father. Our heroine thought to herself that he was just a child now, so she ordered him to be seized. The duchy enters the war, the more mercenaries they have with them, the better. Besides, if she spares the future king of mercenaries from the difficulties and hardships he experienced in childhood, then in the future, no one will point swords at Liz. This time, the little sister will receive her love and grow up in a favorable environment. She will not become a young duchess and will not be bullied. She will have her own home and self-confidence. She will grow up as an ordinary child, enjoying what she deserves as the younger sister of the Duchess. She will be dearer than everyone will be the kindest, most honest, and dazzling. Meanwhile, the young man reported that the enemy was defeated. The boy told her to kill him instead when asked why. Since Rachel had come to see his father, he replied that knowing the state he was in, he still dared to say that. But our heroine passed him by and headed towards the house. The kid screamed that he shouldn't do this, that he shouldn't touch his father, because he was already out of his mind. The father of the king of mercenaries is Jarvis. He was also a king until an unknown poison made him incapacitated. In the original, Caesar lost his father to poison and became the leader after he found the enemy and plunged his sword into his heart. The girl told the boy that she needed their strength so she would save the king of the mercenaries. Let him repay her kindness. Mercenaries are always in pursuit of money and freedom, but they have someone before whom they tremble as before a deity. This is none other than the king of mercenaries, Jarvis. He never left his subordinates in trouble, helped them get proper pay, saved them from unjust imprisonment, executed all who touched the mercenaries, even the aristocrats, the absolute, who protects his own and remains strong despite being ordered to be destroyed for killing the nobility. He was king until he retired 2 years ago due to illness. The man handed Rachel a brooch as a symbol of an oath, even if it was only once, but all members of the 5 strongest guilds of the Castor Empire would unconditionally mobilize at his call. Her grace is his benefactor. The mercenaries will never forget her mercy if she allows he would like to give this power to her. In the novel, this brooch was given to the saint, but now Caesar's salvation and decoration belong to her. Our heroine managed to take the sword that could have been aimed at her sister. Jarvis said he had a lot of questions, but he couldn't keep such an important person, so he'd be brief about how she managed to save him. The girl replied that the Piero herb is a poison that kills the soul. In fact, it is even more of a curse than a poison. Rachel is a magician and is now finally convinced that she has the power to cleanse herself of filth. The deeper the curse penetrates, the more fatal it is. The herb works best with something natural, such as alcohol. The boys immediately remembered the woman who said she bought a wonderful wine Caesar. He is also a big boy now, so if he is curious, he can try it too. After which, the king of mercenaries said that the Duchess gave him a good hint. It seems that he still has a lot of things to do in this world. When he sorts everything out, he will come to her to thank her. As she left, our heroine replied that she gave him her permission to do so. Meanwhile, the young man asked whether Her Grace really wanted to destroy the Knights of Lexville. The little girl replied that no, her older sister didn't know anything about it. The guy stated that it meant it was her initiative. I thought to myself that both Rachel and Liz are mages. If Agnes were their enemies, there would be a lot of problems, after which I asked what she plans to do after she kills everyone. Did she think that if everyone found out about this, her ladyship would suspect the little one? The girl replied that since they were already corpses anyway, she would tell them her plan. She would say that they had met robbers on the road, so they had killed all the uncles, and she and Bella had managed to escape. The young man thought to himself that she was a magician, but in fact she was still a child. There is nothing more absurd than the story of the death of the Knights of Lexville from bandits. Childish menace, mixed with magic and cruelty, for some reason, this feeling is painfully familiar. After which, he declared that it was necessary to correct the situation, so he began to break the ice swords. Then, he picked up the baby in his arms and said the game was over. Young lady, his threat was to have her obediently follow his destination. The girl hissed that if they touched Bella, she would really finish them off. The young man noted that her murderous energy was as sharp as a sword blade. Although not yet sharpened, this little one had already managed to harm the people whom the Duchess was raising. Then he said that his master was a terrible person. If she destroyed them, then her family would have to bear responsibility. Apparently, she learned about the war in the Duchy of Agnes, and now she almost made another enemy. Her magic is strong and cruel. He feels that she can protect anyone, but the Duchess is not as weak as Liz thinks. Her ladyship will cope with the problems on her own, and she, the young lady, needs to stop wasting her power so carelessly. But he thought to himself that it seemed that Rachel knew about the girl's power. The Duchess asked to be polite with her, strictly adhere to the menu for the child not to show the sword, not to allow her to see the fights, because she might get scared and much more. The little girl looked closely at the knight and said that she would definitely kill this uncle. Arthur asked if maybe it was enough to talk about this. She had previously said that she would kill, and now that's all he hears from her. Dante suddenly appeared and started to wail about how one could talk about murder in front of a child. What he was even doing. The guy tried to justify himself by saying that there had been a misunderstanding. The man shouted that there was no misunderstanding, that to touch on such topics in the presence of a gentle little lady was a real blasphemy. Liz thought to herself that being called gentle seems harmless. Being small is someone who needs to be protected. This person in front of her is the one who can stand up to this annoying uncle. Gerald continued to scold him and ask what was wrong with his eye. how the Knight of Lexville managed to get hurt. The guy replied that he was actually trying to explain, but he wasn't listening to him. The little girl butted into their conversation and said that it was her fault let him forgive her for scratching her because she only waved her hand. But he pointed his sword at Bella and threatened her, so there was nothing else to do. The young man did not understand what was happening, why she was presenting him in such a strange light. The assistant hissed that it was simply disgusting he had committed a simply barbaric act, to choose a child and a weak servant as opponents. Where has his nobility gone? This is complete madness. What baseness let him not dare approach the young lady again? The young man was so taken aback by what was happening that he couldn't even find the words to respond. Meanwhile, Marcus was thinking that the Count thought that the stupid Duchess might consider that a deep defense would be to her advantage. He would move his troops before she had time to complete her preparations. Most likely, this is exactly what will happen, so decide on a lightning attack. It is known that his army numbered people plus mercenaries. The girl replied that their troops numbered people. Actually, it was unclear where such confidence came from in the column, after which she asked how many mercenaries he had. The man replied that the number was still unknown, but he had hired 5 of the largest guilds. Their requests were ignored by the guilds, although a decent fee was offered for their services. Our heroine muttered that now they would have to answer because the oath of mercenaries has absolute power. The assistant exclaimed that he had just sent their man to them, how she had managed to get this thing at all. Rachel thought to herself that she had simply stolen something that belonged to the main character, but she answered out loud that it had happened by accident. Marcus continued that there was one problem left, and that was Count Wiccan's confidence. Despite her young age, she had incredible courage and strength, capable of attracting all 5 guilds to her side. Therefore, it will clearly be difficult for the Count to resist her alone. Agnes replied that yes, that is why, even though there is so much to do now, it is necessary to keep the imperial family under control. The girl has a feeling that the Agnes family has long been trying to be drawn into an undesirable conspiracy. A buried suspicion resurfaces. This body is addicted to the Piero herb, and it is controlled by the imperial family. A suspicious look is directed at the young heiress who has lost her parents and protection. The emperor ascended the throne 3 years ago. At the same time, the former duke ordered his physician to inquire about this herb, and immediately after that, he died. The young man immediately declared that he would select and send out many spies. Our heroine thought to herself that when she got into this body, the present and future were distorted in the original. The conspiracy against the Agnes family was never revealed. The more she strengthens the family, the more the emperor will try to put pressure on her to protect her beloved child. And her land she must fight. But how much? Even if she doesn't like it, she might have to shift the timing of the protagonist's rise to power, after which she said to bring people from the villages to the castle and burn everything so that the Count's army would not receive anything from their territory. A master is a person who has achieved perfection in some field. The most valuable skill is considered to be swordsmanship. One day, in the capital's gossip newspaper, a rumor spread that a swordmaster had been born in the empire. People thought it was a tabloid piece of nonsense, but it wasn't empty talk because the main character is Arthur Jorgent, a Lexville hunting dog. The Archduke asked if they had been suddenly attacked, and the boy replied that he did not even know if it was right to call it a surprise attack. The young lady is a magician, of course. She is not as strong as him yet, but she controls mana so skillfully that she is able to turn water into ice. She will soon reach his level. He can't believe that her ladyship and the young lady are magicians. If they were enemies, it would cause a lot of trouble. Dante admired that she was like a doll. This sweet, charming creature in the cold mansion of the Archduke gives him the opportunity to find meaning in life again. Although now is not the time for such talk. She must be tired after a long trip. How does she feel in general? He will fulfill any of her wishes. Theo said that it was all just empty talk. Let Arthur take her to the room, and Dante actually had a report to him. The guy was indignant that he was really sending him with a treacherous lady whose nature even Rachel knew nothing about. The little girl whispered that she liked everything, but if she said one more word about her older sister, she would kill him. The young man replied that he heard words about being killed more often than on the battlefield. When they left, Geralt reported that it was confirmed that an envoy from the imperial family was on his way to the Wickens family. The young man exclaimed that, it turns out that the imperial family is going to intervene in the war. The man replied that he killed Duke Agnes because he did not want him to uncover his dirty deeds. In the future, Giorgio would use even more vile tactics. Theo replied that this could not be allowed. The Duchess would only be safe if they restored her family to its former positions. It seems the Emperor is planning to hire 5 guilds and hand them over to Wiccans, since the Count may not have the strength to manage, so they are not playing fair. The guilds are not the most serious problem, but if the Count continues to rely on the imperial family, Agnes will be at an extreme disadvantage. After which, the young man added that if the duchy could not cope, then they would have to intervene. He thought to himself whether he should give that little girl a stern warning when he left the castle, because then few people would be able to control her. Dante Gerald is a genius who has served the Lexville family for generations. The man who everyone believes is the one who is responsible for Theo turning into a monster during all the